bonsoir tout le monde,
Good
bienvenue
evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of December the 13th, 2021, the last municipal council meeting. Unless unexpected things happen before the end of the world, it should be the last one for the year. Without any further delay, welcome one and all. Our opening word for each meeting. Dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we can't change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This being said, the meeting is called to order. Confirmation of a quorum. Obviously, everyone is here tonight. And conflict of interest to be declared. Did we receive any? Receive nothing? Nothing to report. So let's continue. For the adoption of the agenda moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded nay. Carried as presented. This brings us to item number 7, presentation, inquiries and petitions. 7.1, inquiries by the council members for the Kodiak Regional RCMP representative. Good evening and welcome, Inspector.
Merci.
Thank you. Just a few items to share. As I've been doing during the last meeting, I relate the activities that we do. On December the 3rd, as you have seen, 4 individuals were not from New Brunswick. We grabbed them about several robbery. Some money was stolen from some business. It's a good file, and it's just part of the people that act improperly. But it's good when we can grab them because they were traveling throughout maritime provinces with a good police work. We were able to find them here in Dieppe and stop them, and we stopped their misbehavior. It was a good day for us. The other thing is, if you've seen, as I said last at the last meeting, it's to be careful when it's holidays. We like to celebrate and take a few drinks too many. Last Saturday, we had an operation at night. I participated in it, and we checked on 200 cars. Several arrests were made. So it's just to remind the people that when we celebrate with our friends, if it's a residence or a restaurant, don't drive the car before you go home. As I said also at last meeting, if some places represent a problem, we had mention of the car in the following week. We were present. We didn't notice too many things, but it's good to have visit to remind the people. And also, we send a patrol car 3 days in a row. Maybe they will think of slowing down when they pick up the children. I wish you would share these because some people are available, they don't work, and they are limited on during the day, and we can nab them. And the last thing is the reduction of criminality. Some people are working on a projects involving drugs in the whole area of the. Besides that, I want to wish happy holidays to the member of council, to the employees, and the public in general. If you travel, be careful. I think the long highway to go back to Quebec. I'll go to Montreal for the holiday. Thank you. And I would ask you before we go to the question, please give our wishes to the Kodiak RCMP group. I think we all realize the importance of the service that you are giving, and we also appreciate the details and all the improvements that have been brought about the last few months. It's much appreciated. That being said, is there any questions from the counselors? As I said, thank you very much. Happy traveling. We'll see you next year. We are at item 7.3, sorry, 7.2, presentation. I almost jump over our friend, Mr. Jean-Claude Cormier. Presentation on the light program, Second Chance Workshop. Welcome to the mic. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, executive director, assistant. I'm happy to be here and thank you for giving us the opportunity of a few minutes to talk about our program, Project Light. I wrote down a few words. I'm not sure that I'll respect them. The program, the light program that we're trying to implement is a new tool, a new program to help the people without those who have no housing. Some are traveling in the region, unfortunately. So unfortunately, these people become a handicap more than something bad. They want to give an opportunity to those who want to work. The Nazareth and Rising Time tell us that some persons are ready to take over and go back to work. For us, the importance is to be able to give these people the opportunity to go back and obtain a permanent job, not only a 2 day job, but a permanent one. Several people give money to the homeless people. Not necessarily that it's a choice, but it doesn't solve the problem. Philosopher the boss 3,000 years ago, I didn't know him. If you give a fish to a man, you feed him for 1 day. If you show him how to fish, you feed him for life. And for us, this is what we want to try to do. So, our request is for the purchase of a vehicle, a van. The expert tell us that they're not people who will wait on the side of the road half an hour or 1 hour to go to work. Even the well being, those who are well, have a hard time to do it. So it's important for us to go and get them where they are, take them to work, but also to be able to bring them to their appointment, whether it be the doctor, the optometrist, the psychologist, the dentist, doesn't matter. It's to bring them to their appointment and be able to bring them back to work. If not, it will be a lost, a full day lost. The mayor of Moncton was suggested to give passes for the bus. That's not a viable solution for these kind of people. So we call on the three level of government, the municipality to pay the van, the province to continue and pay some material that they need, such as boots, shirts, and so on and so forth. I have the pleasure of announcing the contract with the province is signed. We have the federal left. We made a request to the federal for three employees, one to drive the van, who, according to several at the board of directors, said it will be an almost full-time job, and the person who will be hired to drive the van on the free time can work in the storage to clean the furniture and repair. We've asked for two persons who will accompany the homeless and evaluate them. These are people, if they have not worked in 6, 8, or 10 years, they will probably need to be followed closely, be accompanied, and be shown and be before I formally invite you to come and visit our local Environ Plus has a big warehouse. We have a store. We have a classroom, and we also have a room to fix the furniture and clean the furniture. Presently, we have 5 persons who are paid, and we have 12 volunteer over and above who come. Some come a day a week, others half a day a week. And by the way, if I may allow myself, if there are citizens who would like to do a little bit of volunteer work, we are seeking, and we have something to occupy everybody. In essence, well, we would have liked to undertake the project without anybody's help, but our finance does not allow this. We have a mortgage of close to $500,000 that costs us $2,700 more of payment per month, and we have 5 employees to pay. The sale of furniture, even if the furniture is given, everything that come in at Aviro Plus must be clean, wash and clean, and a percentage need repair. Some are minor, but sometimes it's greater. But I'm happy to say that we save over 100 tons of well-being that don't go to the dump per year. For those who are interested to save our planet, it's not negligible. And on that, I invite you to come and visit our local. Euro Plus is open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So come 3 or 4 that you come alone. I will be very happy to, if you call me, to tour the place with you. And Leo Johnson, the instigator of the project Euro Plus, but he was unable to be with me. I thank you for your attention, and we will wait for words from you. But be assured that our project, we intend to take it all the way. Unless you have question, I don't know if there's time for that, but we'll see if there's question or not. But any question for Mr. Cormier? No questions. Happy holidays. Well, thank you very much. This being said, that bring us to the next presentation, 7.7.3 presentation on the joint action plan for the downtown security in general, further than downtown, but centered around Mountain downtown. Miss Miriam McMee, good evening. You hear me? Yes, we hear you well. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Happy to see you again. Thank you. C'est Miriam McNee. I'm executive director at Marimonta, and I'm here to present briefly a, a report following the report that was published in November. Thank you, first of all, for granting me a few minutes to keep you aware of our progress. Our community working group on homeless centered on downtown involves the three community was created at the end of June 2021 and it understands representative from the three government levels, representative from the business and the social sector. I represent Marimonta. We organize a community forum. A few of today's participants may have gone to the forum on September 23rd, but there were more than 100 stakeholders, and we will discuss the situation and the eventual problem. And following the forum, we cooperated with the homeless main committee and the ICMP. And lastly, a report was condensed. A joint action report was published on November 26, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So the report contains 25 initiatives that are specific according to our work group, and all the partners who participate can make an important difference in the master of our situation of homeless and the security downtown. So I think if you look on the report, you will note that the signature of involved people represents a sign of support. So the action on the report were grouped in the following categories. First of all, governance, who will do what to make these actions go forward. Second category is mental health and drug addiction. What service will be necessary and who will supply to give the necessary support to the most vulnerable people. A tribunal of mental health with specific freedom. It exists in St. John. The management of emergency housing, such as Nazareth and Argent House. How can we work with these establishments to make a maximum use of these resources? The policy of housing first to cooperate with Marimonta, that is with myself, to encourage delay of reasonable housing and that the necessary support be present for the clients to undertake a community dialogue on the disposition of shore service out that can play a role in the reduction of drug consumption and which is dangerous everywhere. And lastly, application of the law. How can we make the downtown safer and more secure? So the first step, I should say, that we will undertake, it will be first of all to recruit an executive director to lead these 27 actions on a daily basis. Most members of the group have other files to take care other than homeless, and we have someone who will be responsible for that by cooperating with all the people involved. Today, I'm happy to share that we obtained a financing of $50,000. You may know under Reaching Home, the federal government, under the Canadian strategy of homeless people, to go forward with these 27 actions, including the hiring process and the research of recruitment will start this week. And so that we don't lose too much time, we get involved with all the involved people to give advice on a daily basis. Then we will organize. In fact, we've started meeting with the provincial and federal government on the needs in drug addiction, the emergency home, and in the community also, as well as the need of mental health tribunal. Today, this morning, we met with the Conservative Party Regional Council at 8 o'clock today. And after, we intend to meet with the provincial government to convince the government to co-finance a pilot project on a complex need with the future to target about 20 individuals with the highest needs who are presently in the street and to undertake the pilot project the first semester of 2022. A fourth step is to increase the presence in downtown by the RCMP. An update was presented by Ron De Silva from the RCMP about a place that is central to on the way that the patrol in downtown Moncton will react as of the beginning of 2022. The last step for the time being, it is to make report to the community on the progress. How we will do it, while a point card will be present on the site of the Chamber of Commerce. And following each action, the table will be updated. We also committed ourselves that we report on a more formal way to the community as a whole of what is every 2 months. Every 2 months, we'll publish a report, a summary with the details on what we have accomplished during the previous 2 months. So, in conclusion, the organization that co-signed this report of action don't want that it ends like an element on the shelf, but we use it as a road map and to try and improve the safety of downtown, starting with these priorities that I just mentioned on a short-term basis. The resolution, this resolution of the problem won't be easy because the pressure of the community. Even though we hope that all the actions would have been completed yesterday, but at least we have something concrete where most actor uh, signed to. Next step is the execution, the implementation. There's no reason why we should delay. The working group will continue to turn towards the municipal council to receive support and some leadership in the months to come. While we are attacking to these priorities for tonight, I would like to ask that the city of Dieppe designate a member of the staff who is working on a social aspect of more especially homelessness for the greater Moncton, so that person is a contact person to cooperate and see how we can undertake the 27 actions on the plan. That's all I have for tonight. I wanted to be brief, but the report is public on the website of the Chamber of Commerce. But I can take your question if you have any.
Merci.
Thank you.
Pour ce qui est de la première chose, j'imagine
As
que
for the first
de votre
thing,
côté, de votre
our executive
démonstration, ce
director will
sera
take care of your requests
désigner une personne
to
ou
designate a person
qui va se joindre à votre
who will
fonction
join
pour
your group
représenter la ville de Dieppe.
to represent the city of Dieppe.
Ceci étant dit, est-ce
This
qu'il y a des
being
questions
said,
de la part des
is
membres
there any
du
questions
comité?
from the councillors?
Non? Aucune
No,
question?
no question.
Parce que
Okay,
je sais que tous
so
les membres du conseil
I know that
ont lu avec
all the council,
attention le
the
matériel
councillors
que vous nous avez
read
soumis.
attentively the material that you send
Cela
us,
concernait
and we are all very
le
concerned
problème d'itinérance
by the
selon
problem of
les études.
homelessness.
Un peu moins,
It
mais
touches us
on
a little
reconnaît
bit
quand même
less, but we
la
recognize
nécessité de
nevertheless
travailler
that
avec
the necessity,
les deux autres
the
communautés
need to work with the other two communities
dans notre triangle
in
de
our triangle
sud-est du
of
Nouveau-Brunswick
southeast New
pour
Brunswick,
travailler conjointement et continuer à améliorer
work
la
jointly and
situation pour les itinérants.
continue to improve the
La
situation
première
for the
chose
homelessness
que je
by
voudrais
finding
mentionner
solutions. And
dans la
as you
première
probably heard
présentation,
on the first
c'est
presentation before you,
c'est encore une fois un groupe qui
once again,
cherche à
it's a
trouver
group
des solutions
who is seeking to find
pour
solutions
retourner certains des
to
itinérants au travail.
send back some homeless
Ça
people
fait partie
to
d'un
work.
ensemble.
It's part and parcel
Ceci étant dit, le
of a
conseil
whole.
aussi collabore
City of Dieppe
avec votre groupe
cooperates
sur
with
un
your
autre
group
projet
on
et
another
on va
project,
pouvoir
and
mener ça
I hasten
arriver
to see
sa conclusion
this coming to a conclusion
de vous recevoir chez
and
notre
to
auditoire.
receive you on our
Alors,
territory.
je pense que
So I
j'ai
think
vraiment plusieurs choses. J'espère
I've
que
covered several things.
j'espère, mais s'il y a des
I
questions, s'il y a
hope
des
what
commentaires à ce
if
sujet,
my
je vais
comments
répondre à
raise
des
any
questions.
questions from my
Je vais donner
colleagues.
l'opportunité de
I'll give
répondre
you
aussi
an
aux questions.
opportunity. If not,
Je vous remercie pour
I
votre
thank you
présentation.
for
Ça
your
fait toujours un
presentation
plaisir
tonight
de collaborer avec
and
vous.
the pleasure of cooperating. Good evening. Thank you.
Ça nous amène au prochain
This
item,
brings us to the next item,
7.4, présentation de
7.4,
du
presentation
plan directeur plutôt
of the
des loisirs. Alors, nous avons Julie
recreation
Hugard
plan.
et
Julie
Nick Frizzell qui vont nous présenter
Ugard and Nick
le,
Frizzell
le résultat de leur étude
present the
sur
result of their study
le directeur des loisirs.
on
Monsieur
the
Nelson, vous avez quelque chose à ajouter?
recreation plan. Monsieur Nelson, you have something to add?
Fermez ton micro.
Did I? Good evening. Yes, these two persons are destined to present a summary of the content of the master plan to share their results for the undertaking for the year 2021, and it will give us the opportunity to ask questions and to challenge if there's something you want clarified. I invite Mr. and Mrs. the consultant from WSP to make the presentation.
All yours.
I'll just unmute myself there. I believe that the presentation is on your side. I mean, I have it as well, but I'm not sure. I think it's probably more seamless if it's shared on your side of things. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there.
It would be you to share the presentation.
You want me to share it? Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
I'll do that right away. Just bear with me here for one moment. Sorry, I seem to be having a computer issue with Zoom here. We normally use Microsoft Teams. Just give me one moment. My apologies, everyone. Okay, my colleague Erin is actually going to share her screen instead. Mine doesn't look like it's going to be working this evening. Sorry about that, everyone. Joys of virtual meetings. One more moment.
Here we go.
There we go.
Sign of life.
Okay, sorry about the wait, everybody. So thank you very much for your patience. We appreciate it. I am excited to be here today with you, with my colleague Erin Sauvé, who's very kindly sharing her screen. My name is Jenny Lugar, and we're also here with Nick Frizzell from New Stadia, who has helped us every step along the way with this recreation master plan. And so, yeah, as I said, we're very excited to be here to present this to you this evening. Nick's going to jump in a little bit about halfway or a little more than halfway through and walk you through some implementation stuff. But I think we'll dive right in. Next slide, please. So I wanted to, I know that we talked to you quite a few months ago when we met, and I introduced myself as a community planner at WSP. My colleague Erin is a community planner as well. And so I want to start by going back into the development of the Recreation Master Plan and talking about where we've been, how we've arrived at where we are today with our Recreation Master Plan. So firstly, the objectives of today's presentation. So what we're here to do today is to present the master plan to council, of course. We're in our final step here to answer questions and help familiarize council with the plan. So as was said before we hopped on, we are really happy to be here to help walk you through different elements of this plan. If you have any questions or thoughts or anything that you wanted to flesh out with us this evening, we're totally here for that. And then, of course, to celebrate the new Recreation Master Plan. This is an exciting step for the city of Dieppe, and it's going to guide the next 10 years. What we think is a really great direction. So I think the best thing, and I'll say this right off the bat, is if you have the Recreation Master Plan in front of you, following along, we are kind of going in chronological order based on where the actions are in the plan. So if you'd like to follow along like that, but otherwise, I'm going to do my best to really give you a really good sense of what's going on in the plan and what the details are. And then, of course, if there's anything that you wanted to ask questions about or that we wanted to you wanted to get a little bit more familiar with, we are also here for that. Next slide there. Thank you. So where have we been so far? We are in our final phase 4, but we started many months ago with some data collection and background review, where we took some time to familiarize ourselves with all of Dieppe's background documents, policies, current service model, financials, everything like that. We did some work looking into sociodemographics and community analysis, which helps us to get an idea of exactly the community, the essence of the community that we're planning for. And then we looked at programs, services, and facility inventory. So what exists right now, and looking at what exists in comparison a little bit to other communities as well. We did some public engagement. As many of you likely remember, a lot of this was online, but we did have an opportunity to use the Dialogue Dieppe web page, where we had some interaction with the public that allows people to have a little bit more interaction than you might usually have online. And so we did some stakeholder and public engagement. We did several workshops with stakeholders, and overall we gathered an enormous amount of information that really helped to shape this plan in a big way. The next is a really important exercise that we do when we do recreation master planning, which is the needs assessment. So we looked at, the desires of the community, the things that people had stated that they'd really like to see. And then we looked at what was really needed. So where the deep need exists in terms of, inequities, in terms of where other cities of similar sizes are standing, that sort of thing. And from this, we ended up doing an innovators workshop where we worked with several members of the City of Dieppe staff and several of our what we called kind of subject matter experts, so recreation professionals, landscape architects, programming professionals, all a whole slew of folks came together to really workshop some of the findings from the needs assessment. And then we looked at, using this, we looked specifically at leisure, recreation, and sport infrastructure and parks and open spaces. And that really helped to guide us into our final phase, which we're currently finishing up now, which is the development of the Recreation Master Plan. So this includes the implementation plan and operational feasibility assessment, which Nick is going to get into later in the presentation, the final report, which I'm going to outline for you in great detail here, and then a presentation to council where we are tonight. Thank you for having us. Next slide. So the purpose of this project, the overarching purpose of this project, was to develop a new recreation master plan that would address leisure programming, recreational and sports infrastructure, and parks and green spaces. So this presentation, and in fact the report itself, really follows these three kind of key themes, which can in some cases be broken out into other kind of sub themes, those being leisure programming, recreational and sports infrastructure, and parks and green spaces. These were the three larger themes that we really wanted to address, and that staff really wanted to address in putting together the RFP. So the objectives of this included creating a plan that's the right fit for Dieppe now and for the next 10 years. So this process will be undertaken again in about 9.5, 10 years, but we've created a plan that we do believe will serve the city for this next 10 years. Promoting active living and opportunities for spontaneous recreation. So in looking at trends, that was a really important trend that was listed by staff as important, that when we spoke to council last time, many of the councillors said that was very important. And also, as we saw in researching national and provincial trends, that was very important. Understanding how needs and demands have shifted. So 10 years is a fairly long time in the span of recreation. Our communities are changing rapidly, and so we really wanted to dig in and understand how needs in the community had actually shifted throughout this time. Understanding current and future needs of the community. So back to needs there. Our job, and a really important part of our job, is to identify where the needs really exist, so that we're not, directing staff to kind of be running around chasing after things that people are asking for, and rather we're being proactive and getting ahead of it and saying, this is where we anticipate the needs taking place in the next 10 years. Recognizing and strengthening partnerships. So partnerships are really, really key part of recreation provision in the city of Dieppe, and we wanted to create a plan that would help guide staff in strengthening those partnerships. And then considering sustainability in policies and programs. So this goes to environmental sustainability, but also goes to fiscal and social sustainability. Next slide, please. So to quickly overview the public engagement, we've been through this once already with council, but I know it's been a few months, so we'll do a little refresher. We completed 13 interviews with different city staff members. Those were really crucial to building our understanding of kind of the lay of the land, exactly how recreation provision is offered in the city of Dieppe. We spoke to 25 key informants. These were people who were, key people who participated or created recreation programming in the city of Dieppe. Key business owners, those sorts of people. We spoke to we talked to council at the first council workshop and took your feedback, and that was 9 individuals. We spoke to 50 plus stakeholder and user groups. So this is through our workshops. We had the pleasure of really getting to know and getting feedback from a lot of diverse groups. And this was both from our workshops and from sending out requests for information. So we requested that many different groups reply to us to let us know how they're using recreation infrastructure right now, how they would like to use recreation infrastructure, where they see their group growing or shrinking for that matter in the next 10 years, that sort of thing. We collected feedback from 80 community members online, 80 different families that submitted feedback about recreation. And then we spoke to 10 community members in person. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the needs assessment was a really key piece in the development of the Recreation Master Plan. It helps us to look at wants versus needs, and helps us to establish a true direction for the master plan through some high-level recommendations. So in the needs assessment, we work to inventory different trends. We look at different facilities and how many of those there are. As I said, we do some comparison with similar communities across the country. We look at socio-demographic data, so what the different population spreads are, whether or not there's a large number of seniors, whether or not there's a large number of children, that sort of thing. And then of course we look
I don't know if you can hear me, but we can't hear you. So you.
Okay. Am I okay now?
Oh, you're back.
Okay. Where did I cut out? Should I start over on this slide?
Yes,
Okay.
you had
So,
just shifted over. You had just
pardon me?
shifted over. Yeah, you had just shifted over to the needs assessment.
Oh, okay. Are we on the right slide here?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, as I mentioned earlier, this needs assessment is really, really important to our development of the Recreation Master Plan. It helps us look at wants versus needs, and it does help us to establish the direction for the Recreation Master Plan because it gives us a series of recommendations that really get to the meat of what the community is looking for. So for this, we inventory trends and we inventory facilities. We look at, what different facilities exist, what people are looking for. We look at socio-demographic data, such as, what the different age demographics are in the community. That's obviously a very important factor in what sort of recreation is required. And then, of course, we look at public engagement activities. So we look at the information that we collected from the public. We look at what community groups have said they need. We look at what individuals say they need more of, and we then try to find evidence in our research to point to whether that is a want or a need in the community, and that really helps to drive the development of the Recreation Master Plan. Next slide, please. So I'm going to, as I said, get into the actions from the Recreation Master Plan. And the way that I'm going to do this is by outlining what the high level findings were from the needs assessment, and then getting into the actions that we introduced in the master plan to address those findings and address those needs that we found in the needs assessment. Next slide, please. So the first area that we're looking at here is programming. The key points from the needs assessment that we found in programming were that information needed to be more widely available and accessible. The online survey noted that there were gaps in programming, so specific gaps that came up frequently from individuals listed in the survey. It was noted that different seniors groups and advocates indicated that more non-structured opportunities were needed for seniors, and that financial barriers were common, and that was creating some isolation for many seniors in the community. It was noted that participants indicated while Dieppe promotes arts and culture, there may be a lack of programming for these activities, specifically geared towards engaging more people in arts and culture activities. And then that there was an express demand for more multi-generational programming. So things like gardening groups, classes, cooking groups, that sort of thing. And this was mentioned as a really important cultural element. So something that could actually help to address the arts and culture gap there, as this was something that could be seen to be passing down Acadian heritage in the community. Next slide, please. So to address those points from the needs assessment, and as I say, these are a summary of the actions. I want to make that very clear. The actual actions in the plan, as many of you I'm sure have seen, are a lot longer. They give a lot more explanation, and they really provide the direction that staff is going to need in order to implement these actions. But I'm going to summarize these actions in a really high level way. And then if we need to later on, if you'd like to later on, we could certainly go back and talk about individual actions in more detail. So the first is to pursue opportunities to work more closely with existing and new arts and culture groups. So it was recognized that there are many arts and culture groups that are very established and successful in the city of Dieppe, and that working specifically with these arts and culture groups rather than trying to start from scratch would be a really advantageous approach there. Action 1.1.2 is to commit to supporting the specific needs of seniors and seniors organizations. So as I said earlier, this action does give staff some very detailed ways to delve into this and to help to support seniors and seniors organizations. And again, not starting from scratch, attempting to start from, the seniors organizations and the networks that already exist. Action 1.1.3 is to streamline policies and roles to help better provide support to community organizations who offer programming. So one thing that came out early on in the research that we did for this project was that there were a series of policies and different roles that were helping to support community groups who offer programming, but that if these were streamlined a little bit more, it actually might serve these groups better, and they actually might be able to access resources that the city of Dieppe is already providing to them in a more effective manner. Action 1.2.1 is to investigate opportunities to create a subsidy program for existing community-based programming, so nonprofit private sector programming, to help make it more affordable, especially for adults. So it was noted that there are a couple different programs that help to support children in participating by eliminating financial barriers for families, and that these same kind of programs don't necessarily exist for adults, even though that was something that came up quite a bit actually in the research that we did, was that especially for adults and especially for older adults, there were some participation barriers, specifically financial participation barriers. Action 1.2.2 is to foster and initiate programming, such as hosting incubator sessions for like-minded groups to help spark ideas, and plans for new programming to help meet the gaps that exist in the community. So the idea here is that the city of Dieppe is not necessarily, and we're certainly not recommending that the city of Dieppe start to offer significant amounts of programming. However, in recognition that there were gaps in the programming that both we identified and individuals that we spoke to through public engagement identified, it was really noteworthy that there was probably a way for Dieppe to play kind of that incubator role, that would help to spark these groups into offering programming that there were gaps, where Dieppe wouldn't necessarily have to run this programming or be in charge of this programming, but they would be able to help the groups to really get going and then become independent afterwards. And then finally, action 1.2.3 was to increase current recreation staff's focus on assisting community organizations who offer programming with growing and enhancing the programming offered in Dieppe. So, the partnerships with the community groups and organizations that already offer programming in the city of Dieppe is an extremely successful partnership, and staff work very closely with these community groups, and it's a crucially important element. A crucially important, did we lose my screen here? Did we lose the presentation slide?
No,
no, you still see it? Okay, I'm sorry, my screen changed. I'm seeing myself now, sorry. So yeah, it was noted as a very important endeavor and a very successful endeavor thus far, that the city of Dieppe staff really collaborate really well and offer support really well to these groups. But it was noted that this could certainly be expanded, and that staff could increase their input in these groups and their assistance to these groups, and that would help to maybe alleviate some of the gaps, but also to help those organizations grow and offer more programming and more diverse programming. So that is programming. Oh, no, sorry, we're going to keep going. So action 1.2.4. This is to investigate ice time availability, optimization, and utilization in Dieppe and the surrounding region, with the objective of understanding whether there are ways to maximize ice time for groups from Dieppe who require additional time. So this was specifically put in programming, though it does speak to ice time. And that was because it speaks specifically to a programming challenge, which is that our needs assessment did identify that there was ice time availability. However, it identified that there were many groups who felt that there was little ice time availability. Action 1.3.1 is to create community group information slides or documents to help guide community groups in what is available to them. So this is similar in creating more support for community groups in order to help them to develop, grow, function as more semi-professional organizations, that sort of thing. Action 1.3.2 is in the same vein, to design a web page portal for community groups to access the information created in action 1.3.1. So having a central location, especially given that, a lot of these community groups are run by volunteers, and they're oftentimes searching down information that was provided to, former leaders of the groups or former presidents of the groups or whatever, and having one central web page or portal for these community groups to specifically access all the information that about what the city of Dieppe does to help them, information about how to book facilities, information about how to organize their group, how to grow, that sort of thing. All in one place was considered really important, and that was actually brought up by the community group several times. Action 1.4.1 is to work to establish in the city's programming schedule 2 or 3 times per week performances, open mic nights, and other similar events at the community stage at Place 1604. So this was something that came directly out of community engagement, and was felt that it would help the city of Dieppe to focus, at least staff, to focus on programming that could offer a really consistent way for community members to get engaged without necessarily taking a lot of staff time away and planning really, really large events, sort of thing. And then next is 1.4.2, which is for staff to investigate and identify 2 to 3 flagship yearly events that are defining features of the city of Dieppe, and identify community partners to collaborate on and eventually be the primary operators for these events. So I'll be clear here and say we didn't attempt to say what these flagship events should be, or necessarily even how many of these there should be, because we don't live in the city of Dieppe, and we think that that's really up to staff and the community and council to land on what these events are. But the idea with these is that it would help to alleviate the staff time that is spent on running large events, and hopefully help to hand these over to community organizations, and really let them develop these events as flagship events, as events that bring people to the city of Dieppe. And these might be events that already exist, so that can have further time and development put into creating community groups who can run these, or they might be events that don't already exist. Next slide, please. So next we're going to get into services. So services are considered, of course, services that are offered by the city of Dieppe to the community, to organizations that provide programming, and in general to the public. So the key points from the needs assessment were that the online survey participants and user groups both noted that there were gaps in the communication of programs and services available. So a lot of people said, you know, I found out about this program after it had ended, or I really wish that I knew that this was taking place, but I didn't know about it. The next is that different seniors groups indicated the need to eliminate informational barriers for seniors participation. So a lot of the time it's harder to get information out to seniors, especially as we go more online with a lot of the information that we share about recreation programming. The next was that sports programming organizations really felt that support from staff for operating, booking, and everything associated with that service was really excellent, but parks, recreation, and arts and culture groups felt that it could be improved. So this is actually something that we see really frequently in recreation. A lot of the time, sports groups have been around for a lot longer and have been included in the umbrella of city recreation for a lot longer than parks groups, recreation groups, and arts and culture groups. And this is typically just one of those things where, you know, if they haven't been established for as long, they don't necessarily get, or they don't necessarily even know about the type of support that could be available to them. The next is that participants indicated that while Dieppe promotes arts and culture, there's a lack of support needed to build organizations, host events, pay rental fees, and that sort of thing. So this is similar to what was listed, or what we spoke about in programming. Arts and culture groups seem to need a bit of a helping hand at this point, and that eventually that would be the goal would be for, you know, more independence and a little bit more robustness to these organizations. And finally, due to the expansion of facilities in recent years, that maintenance capacity has become stretched, and the city will need to plan for future infrastructure improvements with maintenance in mind. This is listed as really important, not only because the city of Dieppe has a very high level of service in maintenance, but also because there are large facilities that have been built, as many of you are very familiar with, and there will be more large facilities that get built in the next 10 years, maybe not quite as large as Uniplex, but you know, getting halfway there. And considering maintenance and considering, you know, how these things will continue to operate over the years is really important, and that's actually something that Nick will get into later on when he's presenting. Next slide, please. So again, we'll get into some actions that we took in the recreation master plan to address these key points from the needs assessment. So the first is to introduce an online community calendar that provides organizations with a central location to promote and communicate programming. So there is an online community calendar that exists for programming that's being offered by the city of Dieppe specifically. This calendar would allow community organizations who are registered as a community organization under the policy that allows community organizations to get registered. It would allow them to put their weekly, monthly, daily, whatever it is, programming on this calendar, and members of the community would be able to access it and understand exactly what was going on, whether or not it was something that was offered specifically by the city or by a private organization or a nonprofit group or whatever. So if I wanted to find out, when recreational soccer was taking place, I could go to this community calendar and I would find, seniors soccer is taking place at this time of day, sort of thing. The next is using the city of Dieppe's GIS data, create an online mapping system that's publicly accessible and includes information on parks, trails, and open spaces. So this is mostly just making information on where people can find different recreational assets at parks, how they can navigate trails and how they can use open spaces, making that information really easily accessible on the city of Dieppe's website. So that there's no barriers that people feel that, I'm not sure what's there. Maybe I won't bring my basketball because I don't know if there's a basketball court, for instance. The next is to design a seniors engagement strategy with support from communications department in order to better engage seniors in recreation and encourage participation in the community. So as this is a recreation master plan, we don't delve too deeply into exactly how engagement should take place for different demographics, but it was recognized that there likely is a gap here for communications between the recreation department, the communications department, and the seniors department. And this is not to say that staff have not been working hard on this, because certainly it's quite a challenge, but it is to say that especially pertaining to recreation, it was still noted that isolation for seniors is a key concern, and finding a way to engage seniors in programming that exists or new programming is really important. And then 2.1.4 is to hire a communications employee who's responsible for communicating and promoting user group activities and programming offerings to the public. So this would be a specific role that would lie somewhere between the communications department and the recreation department. And this person would not communicate this person would communicate, help the community groups to communicate with the public on behalf of the community groups, promoting what is available in the community and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So next we have to create a service level agreement that defines the roles of the communications department and the recreation department, including frequency and level of collaboration and communication. This was noted as a very important internal activity to understand where the different roles lie in order to help better serve the community. The next is to review maintenance staff capacity given newly opened and planned facilities, and then following that to create a 10-year plan for expansion of maintenance requirements and additional staffing needs. So this really gets to the heart of the fact that, with new recreation facilities and with new things taking place all the time, maintenance does need to be looked at in a very collective manner, so as a whole, rather than kind of in a piecemeal manner. So we felt that creating a 10-year plan, looking at the expansion of these facilities and looking at what maintenance requirements would be a really great way to kind of get ahead of providing that maintenance and keeping the maintenance to the same level it's been. Next slide, please. So next we get into passive leisure opportunities. So key points from the needs assessment included that large investments in passive leisure opportunities have been made in the past decade. So trails are a really good example of that. And to get into that, trails were the most frequently listed facilities used outside of Dieppe in the online survey. So we asked the community what facilities they would leave the city of Dieppe to use, and trails were the most frequently listed one. Of course, we don't necessarily need to take this to heart. Lots of people just kind of like some variety in the trails that they use, but it is a good indication that trails are extremely popular and that this is going to continue to be an extremely important passive leisure opportunity in the city of Dieppe. Of course, as I'm sure you all know, there
évidemment, comme vous savez tous, il y a le plan de transport qui se propage et ça va traiter des sentiers également.
More opportunities for passive recreation are needed, especially within existing neighborhoods. So neighborhoods that don't necessarily have small parks in order for people to be able to go and sit at a playground or have a picnic or anything like that. The next is passive leisure opportunities are often free or low cost and require less maintenance and give more individuals a chance to recreate. So this came out as a very important piece in the sense that all of these things make it so that this both the city and the community should be very supportive of passive leisure opportunities. And finally, there was some expressed demand for more free or subsidized recreation opportunities, such as open skates and things like that. Next slide, please. So the actions that address the key points for passive leisure opportunities are to perform spatial analysis to understand how different neighborhoods are served by passive recreational opportunities. So getting into understanding exactly where passive recreational opportunities exist right now and understanding where the city might look to put a little bit of budget over the next 10 years to develop those a little bit further. And as I said, that could be something like, a small community playground or a small park that would allow for picnics, that sort of thing. The next would be to perform a spatial analysis to understand how different neighborhoods are served by pickup style recreational opportunities. So when we looked at passive leisure, we also looked at, where can someone just go to, not to participate necessarily in an organized basketball league, but maybe go just to shoot hoops or play a pickup basketball game with some friends. And so we felt that it would be good for the city of Dieppe to look at where these opportunities exist, given that there is going to be increased demand for this sort of activity over the course of the next 10 years. The next is to investigate the opportunity to create additional passive and active leisure spots within existing parks in addition to those already provided in the city of Dieppe to help meet the growing demand for self-directed passive and active leisure. So looking at those that already exist, such as trails, such as fields, courts, different sorts of places for people to recreate without necessarily having organizational structure. Looking at how those exist and looking at where small interventions could be made to create additional passive leisure spots there in parks. Consider specifically the needs of teenage girls when investigating opportunities for passive recreation. So a lot of what came out of the trends research that we did, and also what came out of our engagement with the community, was that oftentimes there are several passive recreational opportunities that attract teenage boys, but these may be missing in terms of attracting teenage girls. So this action, the summary of this action doesn't tell you much, but this action does get into exactly how you might help to address creating passive recreation opportunities for teenage girls specifically. The next is to partner with the City of Dieppe Public Library, the Dieppe Youth Host, the Boys and Girls Club, and other organizations that serve youth specifically to understand existing programming and work to collaborate in expanding this programming that is addressed towards youth, and that goes towards passive leisure opportunities. So programming in the sense that youth wouldn't necessarily have to sign up for it; they could kind of just show up and participate. Next slide, please. So next we're going to get into indoor infrastructure. Some key points from the needs assessment in terms of indoor infrastructure were that some user groups cited a lack of space or available times at facilities was limiting their group's growth. So we took these different this feedback from different groups into consideration when we looked at the type of indoor infrastructure we would be recommending. The next was that there were specific facilities that might require improvement or may need to be built in order to meet this growing need or demand. The next was that demand for hockey and other ice sports has been growing throughout the last decade. And finally, that expressed demand for more open skate opportunities and opportunities such as that, which is placing more demand on ice time as well. Next slide, please. So actions that address the key points for indoor infrastructure include assessing the feasibility of the facilities recommended in the actions of the master plan that have not yet been planned. So this looks specifically at recommendations 4.2 and 4.3, and you'll have to refer back to the full plan to understand exactly what that means. The next is to prepare a business plan to document the usage, revenues, and expected costs associated with construction of 1 to 3 new gymnasia throughout the life cycle of this plan. So that was looked at as something that was both a desire from the community and something that was needed in the community. The next is to consult with community groups who currently use multi-purpose spaces and or meeting rooms to understand whether they have used rooms at the Uniplex. So we were in this kind of strange gap period where many community groups cited the need for more multi-purpose spaces or meeting rooms. However, the Uniplex did introduce some of these spaces, so it wasn't necessarily clear in communicating with these groups whether they had had a chance to use the Uniplex given the pandemic and given the restrictions from the pandemic. So in this plan, we didn't want to immediately say, the city should build several, multi-purpose spaces or meeting rooms. We felt that it was important to go back to those community groups and understand whether the Uniplex had been considered when they said that they needed more multi-purpose spaces or meeting rooms. Next slide, please. Continuing on indoor infrastructure, reviewing the City of Dieppe's existing indoor facilities to identify upgrades to meet accessibility standards, such as the Rick Hansen Foundation accessibility standards. Improvements identified by these reviews should be budgeted on a yearly basis. So this specifically pertains, of course, to older indoor facilities. And this was noted especially by community groups as a barrier for some of them for using facilities in the City of Dieppe. Next is to work with the Dieppe market to identify organizational improvements that the city can pursue and help the market gain funding and support for renovations and additional cultural programming. So it was felt that the market could really stand to fill a large gap, both for a physical location and also for programming, arts and culture programming for the arts and culture sector in the City of Dieppe. So this action helps to encourage the City of Dieppe to work really closely with the market in order to pursue those opportunities that might exist. And next is to begin assessing architectural and financial feasibility for addressing the gaps at the existing aquatic and sports center, including a gymnasium, a multifunctional space, and the lack of observational areas. So this, of course, requires further investigation, and this plan is certainly not going to say anything to the effect of, the aquatic center should immediately build X, X, or X, but it does recommend looking at the architectural and financial feasibility for this, and that allows the City of Dieppe to start budgetary planning for these sorts of activities. Next slide, please. So we're moving to outdoor infrastructure. So the key points from the needs assessment for outdoor infrastructure were that washroom and water fountain facilities at more outdoor recreation and sports facilities were needed. So this was both to serve passive recreation, so people using trails, and more active recreation. So like, community groups using different fields, that sort of thing. The next was that the online survey noted that outdoor facilities can offer more opportunities for passive recreation than they currently do, and that this might be something to look into rather than necessarily developing large new facilities that are outdoors for passive recreation. How can these be incorporated into existing facilities? User groups indicated that the quality and availability of outdoor facilities generally suit their needs. So many user groups, the majority of user groups that we spoke to, were extremely satisfied with the quality and how many of the facilities that their groups have available to them. And then there was expressed demand for new outdoor facilities to be constructed. So that included an outdoor artificial turf, an outdoor cricket pitch, pickleball courts, and more outdoor basketball courts. So as I said, the findings from the needs assessment, some of the high level things which I just listed there, are addressed in the actions that get into outdoor infrastructure. So those actions include continue to allocate budget for the planned construction of the synthetic all-weather turf located at École Mathieu Martin in Dieppe. The next is to prepare a business plan to document the usage, revenues, and expected costs associated with the construction of a purpose-built cricket facility. So as I said earlier, this plan being a master plan doesn't necessarily investigate budgets and revenues and that sort of thing for specific facilities, but it does give the city of Dieppe, it gives staff some direction on exactly what facilities they should focus on in the next 10 years. And so this is an action that pertains to that. The next is 5.1.3, dedicate 3 courts for pickleball in the city of Dieppe and explore the options and prepare a plan to determine the best approach for enhancing and or building pickleball courts for this purpose. So it was recognized that there are existing tennis courts that are currently being used for pickleball, and in looking at the spread of usage across these courts and in looking at the availability of these courts, it was determined that kind of a 2-part approach should be looked at. And so this action certainly gets into more detail on exactly how the provision of pickleball courts should be addressed in the city of Dieppe. The next is to monitor the utilization of the splash pad located at Saint-Anselme Rotary Park. And should utilization become greater than 80%, look to invest in a second splash pad facility in the north end of the city. So it's no secret that the splash pad is a very popular outdoor infrastructure, and it is also a passive leisure opportunity. And so this was looked at as something that, over the course of these 10 years, it may end up needing to be looked at, though it is not currently considered overcapacity. Next slide, please. Additional actions pertaining to outdoor infrastructure were planned to build an additional 3 ball fields, 2 baseball and 1 softball during the lifetime of the plan. The next was planned to build a total of 3 additional basketball hard courts during the life cycle of the plan. The next was to explore opportunities to introduce washroom and water fountain facilities at more outdoor recreational and sports facilities for ease of use and focus on age-friendly planning. This action does get into specific locations that these are recommended, but this is just, again, the summary of the action. The next is to perform an internal facility space report using the future sport and recreation facility development model from part 3 of the master plan. So that's what Nick is going to get into a little bit later, to determine whether additional grass fields are warranted. So these would be grass fields that would serve both organized programming and recreational non-organized programming. Next slide, please. Finally, we get into parks and open space infrastructure. So key points from the needs assessment include that the online survey noted that more parks throughout different neighborhoods are needed. So this gets into that leisure, passive leisure opportunities as well. Participants indicated that while Dieppe has a robust trail network, there's lack of connectivity with existing neighborhoods and the sidewalk network. So this is, of course, something that will be addressed in the active transportation master plan. And we tried not to do too much overlap between the 2 plans. But it was noted that a lot of people said it would be great if I could get, from my front door to the trail a little bit easier without having to go into places that don't have active transportation infrastructure. The next was that there needed to be more amenities available along trails, such as washrooms, benches, lighting, and interpretive signage. And then finally, that there was expressed demand for expanding the leisure capacity in parks. So things such as food trucks, beverage stands, community gardens, and rest areas were mentioned by the community. Next slide, please. So actions that address the points from parks and open space infrastructure include constructing new parks as the city grows within new and or in growing neighborhoods. So this action provides the city with a framework for addressing new park construction. The next is to add an additional 16 community garden plots to address the needs in the medium term, with another 24 plots added in the long term for a total of 40 additional community garden plots. This was looked at as something that would both help to expand parks and open space infrastructure, but also help to address that need for, or that desire and that need for more arts and culture programming. So gardening was looked at as a heritage activity that could be passed down to future generations, and that creating this opportunity would allow people to take part in passive leisure, enjoy parks and open spaces, and also learn about their heritage. The next was an additional 6 playground areas in the medium term and 5 more additional in the long term, for a total of 11 additional playgrounds, should Dieppe look to maintain the same level of service offered today for playground areas. Playground areas, of course, are considered those smaller community-based playgrounds, neighborhood-based playgrounds, rather than large facilities. The next is look for opportunities to make short additions between trails and neighborhoods to improve connectivity and support recreation, and to invest in the maintenance and improvements to existing trails where needed. This gets back into action 6.1.2, which expanded on exactly where, or 6.2.1, sorry, which is down below and expands on exactly where these improvements might take place. The next is to identify upgrades to existing parks that could provide more passive leisure spaces, cultural spaces, or opportunities for the art sector. Next slide, please. Next is to identify key locations on the trails network to offer amenities for recreational use of trails, including washrooms, water fountains, and benches and/or seating areas. So this action creates some parameters around the distance that you might want between benches, the locations that you might want to put washrooms, that sort of thing. The next is to identify and plan for improvements to parks and trails that allow the use of these facilities during different times of the day and year in accordance with recommendations from the Parks and Trails Master Plan. So again, there is a Parks and Trails Master Plan that addresses these sorts of needs. But one thing that was pointed out was, lighting, for instance. Once it starts to get dark, as it already has, once it starts to get dark early in the evening, lighting is a really key feature that will allow people to use trails throughout the year. The next is to partner with the 6 schools in the city of Dieppe to identify underutilized sports fields that could be adopted for non-structured use when not in use by those schools. So creating passive leisure opportunities doesn't necessarily need to only fall on the city of Dieppe to buy and create parks. It could be also in collaboration with the schools to say, this field actually doesn't get used after school hours. Could we open it up to the community for a pickup soccer game, that sort of thing. And then the next is to create a campaign pertaining to naturalized meadows and parks to aid the sustainability of parks and trails and the reduction of maintenance requirements. So this is also seen as a kind of two-sided, a double benefit here. Creating naturalized areas helps both to reduce maintenance needs, but also helps to make parks and open spaces more sustainable. And communicating this to the community is a really important piece in order for people to not say, it just looks like the city of Dieppe has stopped maintaining this grassy area. Well, actually, it's been created as a naturalized meadow, and it's for sustainability and for to help different flora and fauna to thrive. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it over now to Nick, who's going to get into the implementation sections of the master plan. So as I said earlier, the actions and the recommendations in the section of the plan that I just outlined do have some very key actions for staff to undertake in order to help them achieve the recommendations at the end of the 10-year period of the plan. But this section, as Nick is going to get into, helps to actually kind of frame all of these actions and put them into a specific direction to help staff move forward with some specific activities to undertake from the get-go. So Nick, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Your Worship, Mayor LaPierre, and council members and city staff for having us here tonight. I haven't had the opportunity to present to you, but my name is Nick Frizzell. I'm with New Stadia Recreation. I'm Vice President of Business Development, and I work with a lot of municipalities across the country on planning documents and studies such as this. And I was really part of the team working on this project specifically to review that implementation plan and operational assessment. And what we came up with is kind of 4 themes around the recommendations that Jenny has outlined for us today. And they were kind of overarching themes that help staff really get into these recommendations and implement them. So we can go to the next slide. The first point here in the implementation theme is an infrastructure scorecard, development, repurpose, decommissioning strategy. It's really our recommendation to adopt a formal staff decision-making mechanism here, whereby informed decisions can be brought to council and made. This will work for any new developments, repurposing existing infrastructure, or even decommissioning old infrastructure if that's needed. Really, we wanted to make sure you had an informed decision-making process, which, not that it was lacking, but it was just more structured than required for this. And a big benefit is this will be an open and transparent process for the community. So when people do come to you with asks for new infrastructure or asks for new repurposing development, you can use this tool to do that, and staff will have an informed decision to bring to council. The second point is a centralized policy document. As Jenny's noted, there's several policies that staff look to and work with on a daily basis. And when we reviewed them, they were very great. They were just, we needed to centralize those into a more collaborative document for staff. The task itself will help bring departments together, collaborating on what processes and what policies are good for recreation. And what is great about such a document is you can market it to the end user. You can deliver it as a community access plan so that the end user knows how the policies and procedures work for the city of Dieppe and what they can expect with utilizing the facilities. The third comment is about staff resources and financial limitations. Um, right now, the city of Dieppe strongly supports recreation to the tune of, I believe, 15% of the annual city budget, which is quite high compared to most municipalities. And I believe it's identified that it is for growth, residential growth, and that's great to see. What's going to be difficult moving forward, and what's going to be have some decision making process is there's a lot of recommendations in the plan, and the staffing resources and financial limitations may be there moving forward. One comment we received is it's a bucket full, and if in order to put more in this bucket, we might need to take stuff out of the bucket. But that's all right. We just need to prioritize these limitations and work through the process. And finally, a communication strategy marketing plan would work well for this department, and for a few different reasons. It will work with existing users to better communicate, to better develop their needs, but it also build a brand for the facilities and a brand for all of recreation. So in a sports tourism world, when people are coming to the community, there's wayfinding, there's proper signage that looks at bringing people into the community and know where to go, so they can find these areas of sport or recreation very easily, where the trails are, and it's just branded correctly so that it's well known. This also creates strong metrics so that you can go through a communication strategy, working and knowing this communication method works because we have metrics behind it that will be quantified at every stage. And what this will also do and highlighted, I think, what Jenny was talking about is a collaboration between the communication department and the recreation department, and how we can work together to really develop this master plan so it's going to work well for everybody in the community. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So the plan is great. And then, it's only as good as how the staff will apply it, and monitoring, updating this master plan is critical to know its success, because as Jenny noted, it is long term. It's 10 years. Reviewing it incrementally, either semi-annually or annually, will be important for staff to understand its successes, its pitfalls, its failures, its challenges moving forward. Look at your short-term successes, detail those to everybody in the workflow, and look at those upcoming challenges for the coming year, and look how they fit within these operational themes as well. Constant communication will be going back and forth between council, staff, user groups, so that everyone is engaged in the process. And again, those financial considerations within the plan should be discussed well in advance, budgeting purposes, and looking if potential there's external funding opportunities where necessary. I just want to note that the city Dieppe has a very engaged and purposeful staff that have worked very hard on this plan, and we feel that this plan would be very successful moving forward. It was highlighted several times how successful the last plan was, and how it was followed quite well for the last 10 years, and we believe staff has that form and that push to do that for the next 10 years. So I think that's it for me. If there's any questions, I guess, for Jenny and myself.
All right. So that's a lot of things. So appreciate the presentation, and I will open the floor for questions if there are any. Madame Josée Turgeon-Roy.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Je vais m'exprimer en français si c'est correct. Là, je
I
vais.
speak French if that's okay. First of all, I may have three questions. Generally speaking, what I noticed is that we recommend to go and get the cooperation with several group of interest in the community. I dare to think that we're doing it now, but maybe the community feel we could do it more and take the opportunity to go and get their expertise because they're in a field of interest arts and culture, different sports group are there. What I can see is to invite them, right? To help them directly in the planning. Uh, that's what I was able to read, generally speaking, in what was said in all the sectors or in all the recommendations. But I have a question. Maybe it's for Luke, Richard. In 6.2.3, look, we're asking to associate with the schools for the program. Aren't we doing it now? Look, to have a cooperation with the schools for gymnasium and all these facilities. Yes, you're right. We have an agreement with the South French district. They're talking here them about outside infrastructure, the space of green area. That's what they want on top of gymnasium to grow. So I'm very happy to see that they are recommending washroom in our recreational or leisure place quite a few times with we've mentioned it. We're very happy to see that you are recommending the washroom outside. The age category, the adult age category, we talk about seniors, younger. Maybe I've seen it mentioned only once. Did we question that community, especially the adults, and how did they participate in the survey or in the study? Can you tell me? The seniors, did they participate much? Especially the adults.
I
Did you
can,
get the question?
yeah, I can probably jump in and answer that if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have fairly strong participation from adults, some of them older adults. Once we got into the kind of 65 plus category, we did have a slightly lower participation from seniors. However, there were several community groups who specifically served seniors who had a really strong role in contributing to the actions that we developed because they submitted feedback or because we had one-on-one conversations with them or because they were at the workshops, that sort of thing. So a little bit lacking in the online survey, but certainly that in person and that kind of spokesperson representative, we did have a little bit more seniors participation in that sort of thing.
OK. All right. On a aussi
Fine,
parlé
thank you. We thought,
OK. Où
okay,
avez-vous trouvé le
where did you
nombre
find
exact
the
d'APE
exact
qu'on doit additionner aux
number
communautaires
of
vulnérables?
the community
On a dit
guidance and the different places? You say three. Where does that come from? You were throwing numbers around, about different guidance and playing area. You
That's
said
an excellent question. So the way that we do that that we come up with actual numbers, it's a bit more of a technical process than some of the more programming sort of recommendations. But what we do is we look at how many of these sorts of facilities the city of Dieppe has right now. We look at how many of these sorts of facilities other communities that are similar in size to Dieppe have. We look at what the anticipated population growth is going to be in different scenarios. So under a kind of business as usual population growth, under a more under a lower population growth, and then under a higher population growth. And based on that, we look at if the city of Dieppe is going to offer the same level of service. So, for instance, if the city of Dieppe offers, I'm going to give an example that isn't necessarily one that we used. One second, I could actually pull up one that we used. So, for instance, the city of Dieppe has one splash pad and wading pool right now. We looked at the current supply to ratio. So we looked at, there are roughly 2,500 people served by this one splash pad. If the city of Dieppe were to grow by its anticipated growth rate, then we're looking at maybe needing 1.5 splash pads by the end of the community plan based on that growth. that is why, for instance, in this case, it was recommended that the city continue to monitor the capacity of the splash pad, and if it seems as though that capacity is it's becoming over capacity, and there's people that aren't able to access that resource because it's becoming over capacity, then the city of Dieppe should investigate it. In other cases, there's things that such as soccer fields and that sort of thing, outdoor soccer fields where there are several of them, and we looked at the growth of the population and the interest in that sport, and looked at comparative communities, and then it essentially is a formula that tells us this is how many facilities you'll need if you are to continue to serve the community at the same level of service that you currently have. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
No problem.
Merci, Madame Leboutier.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
In the plan, you alluded that you suggested that the online calendar, that we needed that, and completely agree. We do have one, but not of what level like other cities has, and also online mapping system. So in your final report, will you have appendix to suggest, like, there's so many software out there, there's so many companies, is there some that are better than the others that you're gonna recommend us?
Specifically for that action, I believe that we referred to utilizing the existing GIS system and being able to, and using, in that sense, using an ArcGIS system in order to create that platform online, not only because those are integrated, but also because the city already has a lot of the data that we're talking about in their GIS system. So it really wouldn't be a massive undertaking to create a whole new platform for the website. This would really be just adding to the existing GIS data in order to cater the information a little bit more towards the public, and then making that information available through the ArcGIS online system that is publicly accessible, that anybody can click a link and it'll take them to this map and they can interact with it, turn layers on, turn layers off, that sort of thing. So that would be the program that we would recommend for that, just because seamlessness with exactly how the city is already containing this data.
Okay, thank you. You're also in, you mentioned a few times senior engagement, and I was wondering, is there a norm nationally of what is considered senior for cities? And because right now in Dieppe it's 50 and up, so I think that sometimes we're missing. Pardon me.
For the purpose
from like a standard norm, like for various group, right?
For the purposes of this specific strategy, we looked at seniors up as 65 plus. That said, if there is an established norm, I have not seen one. I could actually go back and I could put that question to. We have a colleague who did work with us on this plan, who does age-friendly planning, and she may have a more solid answer on that than I would. But I believe what the approach that we took with this was 65 plus for seniors, and that the engagement strategy that we have included as an example, as an attached document to this plan, does use 65 plus in that category. But again, I can get some more information to you through Luke if you'd like me to follow up on that.
Yes, thanks. Also, in your passive leisure, you refer quite a bit in more like summer activities. And it would be nice to look at, what we have, because we're so often more in the winter section, half of the, well, not half, but probably 2/3 of the year, in winter season or cold. So what can we create as passive leisure? You talked a little bit about the cross country and skiing, but I know, and just in that area, I think it would be nice to have more suggestion in the winter season. but the rest, it's good, and you've answered some of my other questions from colleagues. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Godbout.
Thank you, Ms. Gunbu. Thank you, Your Worship.
I have a couple of questions. One, I did find it a little bit difficult to connect to the presentation, in part because I think I only received it in English and I didn't have the benefit of the French document to read through and prepare for. So it would have been more beneficial for me, and I think I would have benefited more from your presentation just if I'd have had the French text available to me earlier so I could connect with it a bit more. So if I've misunderstood something, please feel free to correct me and make some links, because it was very difficult for me to make links to what you were saying to previous things. So I put that as a caveat to my questions, okay? And I also didn't have the benefit of all the full recommendations. So one of the things I was wondering about is, for when I look at the leisure plan, the master plan for leisure, the connection for me for leisure with my citizens is health. Vivre en santé. That is what we're promoting. We want our families to have time together. We want quality time together, but it's also a health component. And so I'm wondering for a couple of links here that I'm looking for in your recommendations and in this master plan. One would be, when we're looking at planning for our master plan for leisure, where do you see the role of us interacting with that, with climate change and different things like that that are expected? How can leisure time have to adjust for that? Where do you see that? Is there anything in your report that speaks to that or has us take that into account in our master plan? I'm thinking of excess heat, I'm thinking of excess cold, I'm thinking of extreme temperatures, I'm thinking of things that are coming up, and I see your splash pad. Well, maybe we need 2 of them, because if you think about climate change and the excess heat, maybe we need to get there faster than other things. So just an example there, when you were speaking, I'm just wondering where climate change came into your analysis, and if it
Yeah,
did.
sorry. Sorry, I thought you were done there. That's a good question. I think that it did run as a kind of contiguous vein throughout our planning process here, in the sense that, we did try to look at passive leisure opportunities as a really great opportunity to create both open spaces that could serve human beings, but also open spaces that could provide ecosystem services and could allow, water filtration, or could act as heat disruptors, that sort of thing. We looked at the creation of facilities in such a way that it would be that it wouldn't be just for the sake of creating facilities, but it would be because there is that need and there is that demand, rather than just building buildings because people are looking to have them built. And then I think in general we work to address sustainability through recreation planning and creating opportunities for people to get places. I understand the confusion, because the connection is a little bit more abstract with recreation planning in general, but I think it is about, how people get to facilities is a big consideration, whether or not there are those active transportation connections, whether or not those facilities allow for, sustainable practices to be completed or to be looked at, and then whether or not there are sorts of things that address different weather and weather that's going to change. And so I think that a lot of the parks items and a lot of the actions in the parks, and I hope that you'll get a chance to look into that further. Sorry that the French wasn't available early enough to you there. I think that as you get a chance to dig into that, a lot of the parks ones that are going to come out are going to be it's going to be a little bit more clear on how sustainability was addressed in this plan.
Okay. In a bit of a linked question here too, I was looking for the links to, a lot of our citizens have what I don't want to say sedentary jobs, but a lot screen-based jobs or different things like that, run the screens a lot. And there's a lot of suggestion that in leisure times that that connecting with nature is just as important, can counter the impacts that has on people. Again, thinking about people's health and the role that leisure play. What in the master plan do you think are key issues that support that kind of activity or that kind of role for leisure in some of the things that you have? Are there any of your action items that speak really to nature? I was particularly looking to see if you were in the 10-year plan looking for our next big park, because we've kind of we haven't completely maximized our existing Rotary Park, but we're getting to the place to its maturity. So I would have thought that in the next 10 years, I think I saw a reference to something like that, but of the need to identify the next park. right? Like where are we going to have our next big park, and you know, what would be some of the things that we should be looking for? I didn't see that anywhere, and in part I was looking at it because of the importance that nature plays in countering the impacts that we have in our daily lives that are a lot of our citizens live. And so maybe can you speak to that? Maybe is there anything in there that I should be looking for when I'm reading the report?
Yeah, I think for that specifically, I would go to between the passive leisure recommendations and opportunities, and the parks and open space recommendations and opportunities, and a little bit the outdoor infrastructure. So um, we really take the role of the recreation master plan as helping to identify strategic direction rather than necessarily identifying specific locations, just in the sense that that's more of an urban planning exercise that includes looking into, you know, whether the city is willing to purchase additional land or second additional land, that sort of thing. And that goes a little bit beyond what we typically consider the scope of the recreation master plan. That said, I think that several of the recommendations address that need for a better connection to nature. You know, just a couple off the top of my head, looking at creating neighborhood parks, so small pocket parks within existing neighborhoods that might allow individuals to, you know, even if they've only got 15 minutes to walk the dog in between meetings, they could go down and there's a little park there, and you know they could spend some time sitting on a bench or walking on a short trail along that park, that sort of thing. Looking at creating opportunities for connections between neighborhoods and the existing trails. So that was looked at as very important, because then you can kind of, you know, that helps you to better integrate neighborhoods with the trails that help to bring people to nature a little bit more easily. Um, Another was naturalizing existing parks. So, you know, many parks tend to have a feeling of being a little bit more geared towards organized sports. And you know, there are actions in this plan that look to naturalization of these parks. So the creation of more walking trails within existing parks, to create more multifunctional parks, if you will, parks where somebody could both um, you know, go and join the soccer league, but also could go and go for a walk around the park, that sort of thing. And others, I think, are probably just creating opportunities within parks and within new parks, and looking at park growth in existing and new neighborhoods. And again, that's something that we haven't necessarily said, okay, there should be a new large park in this specific location, because that does go beyond what we typically consider in a recreation master plan. But certainly is recognized in this plan, and it gives staff direction that the city of Dieppe is growing and developing, and there will need to be the development of new parks. And it provides a framework for exactly how these parks should be looked at developing, both in, you know, small neighborhood pocket parks, looking at larger parks, and also looking at retrofitting existing parks, because the city of Dieppe does have, you know, in looking at like communities, there's a lot of park space available. A lot of it is, you know, creating more multifunction in those parks, and then creating better connections between the neighborhoods and those parks, so that it's not necessarily an ordeal to go to the park. You can walk there quite easily, or get there more quickly, sort of thing.
Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le conseiller Lantaigne.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Councillor Lateg, thank you, Your Worship. The, my question was answered in part. I know it's a master plan. It's strategic and to give direction, but I presume that my question would be more for Mr. Richard. With this a plan, I presume that you'll come back to us with a presentation. And I'm thinking about the Century Arena that we talked about a lot the last year, and we had different possibilities and options. So I think with this, you'll come back to us with a plan and recommendations precisely for that park or that space. Is that correct? The Centenary Park project or the space is Raymond's territory, but I know that we had some thoughts about what this master plan could give us, but I can't really answer this question now because that's Raymond's terrain. But I know that we had certain expectations with this report. Yeah, but that's my question because we don't see anything specific with this report. So I'll go back to Raymond with this question. Did you think that this would, that after this plan, you would come back and give us recommendations for that space? Yes, we have elements that are being added after this presentation tonight. As we saw in the capital budgets, we can plan for the next 10 years. So it'll be different projects, and we'll use all the recommendations here, the priorities. And at the centenary site, it'll be part of it at some point. I don't know if it'll be year one or whenever. Right now, I cannot answer that. Do you think that you'll come back in the spring with? I'm thinking about pickleball. Because we heard a lot about it. There's a lot of interest with pickleball, and people are impatient. There's a club with more than 100 members, and they want to know what's going to happen with that. Will they have fields to courts to play in? Do you have any idea if we should have news before spring? We had discussions on the question of the action plan that will come out of this plan. So with look at the team, we'll have to look at the whole of it, come back to council. I don't know about the time frame. It's a bit soon to talk about this question. We're up at 40,000 feet right now. Details will come, but we can't expect to have an answer tonight. I just wanted to get an idea because people are asking questions. But before pickleball, we'll have winter. Yes, they want to know if we'll have a pickleball court this summer. So that's it, Your Worship. We have the master plan tonight. The team is going to go through an action plan. We have the capacity to integrate elements depending on our priorities and reflection. So we'll present to council at the good time. So we're going to secure in a short term 3 courts for pickleball. So in the short term, we'll have a place to practice this activity, and then we're going to talk about all the seasons as well. But long term, we have an action plan. So this could be 2 months, but we have to digest everything that we have heard tonight. Perfect. I just wanted to get an idea for the residents that are asking questions. Thank you. Thank you. No other questions. So this terminates this presentation, and thank you.
And obviously, I know there will be further discussion on the overall plan as we move forward. So again, Jenny, Nick, thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you very much
for having us. It was our pleasure.
Thank you.
Luc a peut-être quelque chose à rajouter, je ne sais pas si vous vouliez le permettre.
Oui, Luc, Monsieur Richard.
Premièrement, merci à nos consultants. Merci à tous.
Thank you to our consultants and the personnel, the whole team that worked, especially residents that contributed during this process. They gave good information to help us get to where we wanted to go. And for information for the community after this presentation, the final reports in French and English that were sent by WSP were on the Dieppe platform. They're there for the community if they want to see them, because there's a lot of information, as you saw this evening. It's going to take a lot of time to digest all this information, but I can ensure that the administration and the internal team are already looking at this information and digesting it, and we're going ahead with an action plan to put into place. So we're going ahead with it, but as you can see, there's a lot of information, recommendations, a 10-year plan. We'll have to go step by step, and it's a lot of investment. So we assure you that we're going ahead very well, and we'll come back to you with all the information. Thank you. That being said, we shall take
une petite pause santé
a little
de
health
5
break
minutes
of
avant de
5 minutes.
remettre au prochain
And
présentateur
then the
notre
next
cher
presenter
merci.
can refresh himself before the next presentation. Thank you.
Alors, bonsoir. Merci de nous avoir permis
Good
cette
evening.
pause
Thank you for allowing us
pertinente.
that small break, dear citizens.
Prochaine
So
présentation,
the next presentation
qui est essentiellement
that was essentially
plan de déneigement.
the snow
On a
removal
déjà vu
plan. We've
certains
had it.
assoirs.
It's important to know what we do with it,
Ce qui
when
sera
we're
plus
doing it, and all
concret,
that,
Monsieur
and to
Ulrich
present
Dubé,
that.
qui est
Monsieur Ulrich
responsable
Dubé, who is responsible for that
sans plus
plan.
tarder,
Without any further
laisse la parole.
delay, the
Merci
floor is
infiniment.
his. Thank you, Your Worship.
Conseil,
Members of
je
Council,
commence un petit peu plus vite que la dernière.
I'll try to be quicker than the last one.
Fait que nous autres, au service des opérations
While at
et
the
facilités
operations
publiques,
service and the
on
public
avait le
works
service
service,
d'activité récréative. Ça, c'est les deux
we had the recreation
divisions
facilities. These are the two
à Dieppe.
departments responsible for snow removal
Mise en
in the city of
entreprise
Dieppe.
de
Okay,
184
we have
pour
184 kilometers of
un
street
total de 360
to clean,
roulements.
360 lanes, Champlain 4 lanes, and that is
La
really
municipalité en a
the
66
municipality. We have
trottoirs
66 kilometers of
331
sidewalks to clean,
fontaines,
131
de sentiers,
uh,
30
fire hydrant,
stations, une
32
88
parkings,
cul-de-sac.
and 90 cul-de-sac.
Le service des
That end,
l'équipement
the
qu'on a,
service,
on a 5
the equipment that we have,
camions avec
5
ML
uh, trucks with ML,
et aussi pour le sel et la
and
sauvegarde,
also for the
des
salt,
chargeurs,
we have
des
12
pelles,
charger
des
loaders
pelles,
with
une pelle rétro
MLN,
qui fait un
a
backhoe,
shower, a backhoe,
deux
in case you don't
souffleuses,
know,
un
two
tracteur
blowers,
versatile avec
one
souffleuse, une
tractor
centrifugeuse
versatile
poids
with
avec
blower,
coudreuse
and
et
one tractor with the spreader and of
les opérations des rues. Fait que nous autres, on va tout le temps
okay,
P2, P2,
the
P3,
streets. We have P1, P2, P3,
Sainte-Carole, Acadie, Lamiro, Champlain.
Acadie, Amiro are P1, for
Priorité
instance.
2 sont les rues
Priority 2
connectrices, Gauvin,
are
Saint-Laurent,
Connector, Gauvin, Central,
Priorité
La
3,
France,
c'est les rues
and
Macadam,
3 are local
Dorian,
streets,
Ville.
Doria and all these streets.
Ça, c'est notre carte
So
des rues qui est
this is the map of the streets here
bleu
that represents
et 1 et
blue
2 selon
and
les
1 and
sites
2,
que vous avez aussi.
and it's on the website and
Ça, c'est
also
notre site web.
identified here on our website.
On
Yes,
va arriver à l'opération de
and
déneigement.
the
Ce qui
operation of
est
snow removal with the
initial,
the initial
c'est dans les 24 heures
what
de
we see
déneigement,
in the 24
c'est
hours of snow
salt,
removal with
combinaison de
salt.
et
This
d'eau,
combination of
21% d'eau,
water and salt.
21% de sel. C'est pas grave.
21% salt is
Pour
good
ceux qui sont
as
habitués,
far as
c'est
minus
quand ça coule
15.
régulièrement qu'il y a un petit peu
It's
de
when we
mélange
could,
entre le sel
it's
et
a
l'eau
kind of white
normale.
water that
Le
we
principe de
see.
ça, c'est la même
The
chose. Si
principle
on prend une
is the
cuillère
same as if
puis on met
we
du sel
take
dedans, on met une poêle, puis
a
là,
spoon,
l'œuf colle pas.
we put
Puis
something
parce
in
que
the
on
pan,
fait venir sur la
and
cendre,
the
on met
eggs
ça là,
doesn't
c'est plus facile.
stick. Well, same thing on the street. You lay it
Oui.
down and it doesn't stick.
La durée d'opération d'éneigement, ça, c'est vraiment
Duration of snow
le plus
removal
important.
is
Quand
probably
vous
the
allez
most
poser des
important
affaires, vous avez des
aspect.
questions, puis
And if you have question,
ça va avec la durée
it
de
goes
l'année du
with
temps
the
et le nombre de
duration of the
centimètres de
time and
façade.
the number of
Si
centimeters.
je déneige
If
10
we look
centimètres,
at a
ça va
snowfall
arriver
of
à
10 centimeters,
1,5
we
jours
look at
après.
1.5
Si
days,
vous faites
36 hours approximately
l'opération
for
complète.
the complete operation.
Fait que
I'll go into
on
more
s'attend à
details
une grosse
what
opération.
includes the operation.
Aussi, qu'on voit une tempête de neige
Well,
de 10
if we
centimètres,
see a snowstorm
puis
with
on va tout
10
déneiger.
centimeters 4 days
Si
before we clean
65
everything in 30
si on
centimeters and more,
on fait notre possible.
well, then we do what we can.
Les opérations de déneigement, ça veut dire
Operation of snow
qu'après
removal.
le
Well,
largissement de
we
la
have
neige,
removal
on
and
commence la
whitening
démolition.
of street. Initial intervention,
Après
we
ça,
clean
deuxième
the
opération,
streets.
c'est
Secondly,
on fait
we
les
call it
bonifications,
cleanup,
c'est-à-dire qu'on fait
but
le
we
centre de ville
widen
comme
and we really
l'ancien pavillon
clean the corner of the streets and we put everything in their place. We clean the sidewalks with P1,
bonification,
P2, and then the crosswalk.
puis après ça, on fait les
we go the bus shelter, and then the fire hydrant. The duration of the operation, it varies according to the following sectors: the type of snow, whether it's melting snow or heavy snow. If it go, it's like your place. If it goes well, it goes well. If it goes bad, it goes bad. Outside the temperature, the new precipitation during the snow removal, another storm will start, and then there is the shelter for the equipment that happens often, and we are able to change things, places. The objective is to clean all the streets before 8 hours. So everything under 30 centimeters. It's not that we widen, but we go once at least in the street and we give an access. It's more for everybody to go to work or ambulance and fire truck. In the case of 30 centimeters and more, while we go as fast as we can, we do the best we can. In the case of parking, such as place 1604, it's to try and do it within 6 hours. We go during the day, and after all the cars are gone, we clean it. But the objective is within 6 hours and 8 hours for the first one. So also for season four, we carry the snow and inside 96 hours after the end of the storm. When we say the inside of the storm, it's the last flake, not when we start. When the last flake fell, that's the end. That's when our work starts. 96 hours, and sometimes with the new building this year, there's new buildings and new parking and evolution. It's possible the 96 hours will become 24 or 48. Well, we adjust ourselves accordingly. And cleaning of a fire hydrant, well, it's at the end of all the snow removal and in cooperation with the fire department on the radio. They can cut in with us while we're working if there's a fire, and they can contact us, patch us, and we go there to clean the snow if they have problems. And we do it by order of priority on the fire hydrant. Dead end. The issue of the day. We have two kinds of dead end. 67 dead ends that we put the snow evenly. What does it mean? Dead end, there's no center, there's no snow in the center. It goes equally to everybody. We try to make it as equal as possible, while the pie is not always round, if you wish. And we, for the other kind of snowball, is that we pile the snow in the middle. We go a first time, we clean everybody's frontage, and then we throw it in the center of the street. And when we come to 40 and 60 centimeters, then we pile at the end of that end. That's the list of seven that we place in the center, and those with asterisk Albany and and Bayview, we do it according to the need. It's like a dead end, and we do it according to the need. And the others, if you look at that dead end, it's more where the density, the duplex, and the houses similar like that. And there's an entrance. There's really no place to put the snow. Our snow deposit is at 150. Sorry, I didn't catch the place. It's near the airport. It's a, this is the site, if you can see it here, I believe. So we really have three souths. The south, we have a big one in the center, and we're the third one here. Our capacity on the land, 45 square, 45,000 square meter. We have 375,000 cubic meter. That means 25,000 train at a truck. When we have everything full, we'll have snow for the year. So we're there We have enough space, no question about it. And we're okay. So for the snow removal of sidewalks, cleaning of sidewalks, P1, they're all the ones with heavy trafficking and the one close to schools and the place 1604. These are priority one, and the objective is to clean them within 24 hours after the snowfall. And 15, 40 centimeters and more, we do what we can. P2 on sidewalk, well, it's up the aquatic center, sports center, and the artery with less traffic. The objective is to clean within 3 days after the snowstorm. We all do a priority one first, and when they're done, we go to priority two. And to make it easier, we start at the middle of the city and we stretch out. We'll present a part that is recreative. Uh, Monsieur Le Breton is on vacation for the recreation center. They have seven parking and different recreational facilities. They clean the snow at place 1604 in Saint-Rassem. We clean the two outside skating ring, and that's what they do. Operation for them, they have 55 kilometers of trail. The plan 2021 22. Well, after 39 kilometers and 55 kilometers, this represents 70% of the trails that are clean, snow clean. The service facility, they have tractors, trail with a snow blower. They have two trucks with a blade, one salt spreader, and two snowmobile and one ATV. And for snow ski, cross country ski. They're open 24 hours during a storm. In the trail, in the school environment, and elsewhere, they start in the middle and they spread out on the sidewalk. And the total of P1 is clean, 5 kilometers. For priority two, it's during regular time, and the duration is not completed for 5 days. It's following P1. They have 5 days to clean the priority two, and the total of trail two of priority two, 23 kilometers. So this is the map that combine the sidewalk, trail, and the pointed out are trail, and the full line are sidewalks. We have a program to adopt a fire hydrant. Some are not, but what it does, well, when you adopt you are responsible for it. You clean it. There is a sticker on it that it says it's being adopted by you. You clean it. It helps us. It helps the community and make it more accessible for the fire truck. I know we're not traveling now, but if ever you're away and you come home to clean, we'll take care of it if you're not there. But as we go by, we clean this. But you can go on the website if you so wish and indicate that you're away to facilitate the work of our team. We ask not to park during the night and not to put the snow near a private entrance on the street and not to push the snow and not to park in front of a private entrance to hinder the work of the snowplow. If there's a car, we'll have the car towed away. And uh, what happens sometimes at the intersection, they start faster. It snows and then it become ice. So also to place the garbage in the proper place. So if there's a big snowfall and the garbage, if you can wait, if not, put them in such a way that we will not pick them up with the equipment. Sometimes it's hard to see. It's night, it's snowed on them. And then, I mean, you know what happens. The plow clean the wells along the streets. With the winter we have, especially in the south, we have a lot of snow during the winter. It helps us to uh, have less ice and to put the snow sideways on the side. If you put them on the left side, it will blow back towards you. So I try to hurry up. I try to hurry up. So if you have any question, any question, question, Miss Godbout,
Participe aussi,
a
voilà,
quick
merci.
one for
Question
citizen.
et dénote une intersection particulièrement dangereuse où il
If
semblerait
a
que les
cit-
véhicules
if a
utilise
citizen
le
goes,
font
if
contourner
there's
sur
a
les
dangerous
sécurisations et les
intersection, what do
infrastructures
they do?
avant
What is the
de
best way?
signaler des
You
dangers.
recommend to tell you the best way is to call 877-100. Ask for the operation center, and they transfer you, and then we'll take it over. Thank you. No one else? Are we there? Yes, you said thank you. Thank you for having gone through this as quickly as you did. And we know we're very proud of our snow removal service. When we compare, we console ourselves and we make the others cry. So it is being said, the ball has been thrown and the challenge is there. So thank you very much. Thank you for your patience also. So let's turn the page. Adoption of the minutes of November the 22nd. Oh, question from the public. There was none. Oh, they told me that already. So adoption of the regular council meeting minutes of November 22nd, moved by George Roy, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded, nay. So the minutes of the meeting of November the 22nd is accepted as presented. That brings us to item number 10 from the memorandum 10.1, the administration. Mr. Melanson.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Bonsoir tout
Thank
le monde.
you, Worship. Good evening,
Le
everyone.
premier dossier,
The
c'est
first
M.
file,
Cormier qui est venu faire une
Mr.
présentation sur le
Cormier, who
financement
made
des secondes
a
chances
presentation,
pour des
second
fonds
chance,
financiers pour un
is
montant de
asking
10 000
financial help for
Suite à
$10,000.
l'évaluation
So
qui a été
following the
faite sur
evaluation and the
l'activité
benefit that we can
l'activité des déchets
foresee
identifiée et
with
présentée
what
lors
was
de la
identified,
présentation
presented in
pour
his
l'Initiative
presentation, we
régionale
see the
de
benefits and the
coopération
advantage of being a
avec des
partner
partenaires, le
in that
financement a été
initiative.
identifié, vous
So
avez vu les
financial partners have been identified. You saw it in the memorandum. The other
nous recommandons une
government
contribution de 10 000
level, we
On va
recommend a
continuer
contribution of $10,000. We'll keep on
les
having
responsables de
discussion
voir les
with the group
bénéficiaires
responsible to see the benefit and the
les
success
qu'il peut apporter.
that this can bring,
On s'aperçoit aussi qu'il y a
because
une
we see
présence
that there is
de gens sans
an
abri
increased
et on
presence
leur donne une
of
deuxième chance.
homeless, and we want to give them a second
L'entité
chance.
s'appelle aussi deuxième
So
chance.
the entity is called Second Chance. It's our recommendation for tonight. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Worship. That council authorized a financial contribution in the amount of $10,000, Second Chance Workshop Incorporated, earmark light program, and that the money be taken from 1-2-20-28-2310 general operating budget funding and grants to organization. I so move. Moved by Councillor Brido, seconded by Councillor Brido. Boudreau, on the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.2 financial contribution for the New Brunswick medical education, the executive director of that organization, came to make a presentation a few months ago. And you ask to study the opportunities that presented themselves here in the memo. We noticed that there's possibly a positive option to make a contribution. We recommend to make a contribution of $115,000 that would securitize an annual bursary for a young from Dieppe to continue their education in the field of medical study or training in our region. We have new arriving immigrants and they're looking for family doctor. This would allow to meet one of the objective of the immigration uh, objective for all these elements. We recommend to participate in developing a scholarship scholarship study for the reading of the resolution. Monsieur Lantin, your worship, that council authorized a financial contribution, the amount of $115,000 to the New Brunswick Medical Education Foundation, Inc., and further authorize that the expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-28-2310, general operating budget, funding, and grants to organization. I so move. Moved by Councillor Nantang, seconded by Councillor Blido. On the question, Mr. Dubuty. Yes, thank you, Your worship.
Président,
Well,
concernant cette proposition ici,
concerning this motion,
je vais voter contre la
I will vote
proposition
against
pour
the
la
motion
raison que, à la
for
part
the
de ces
reason
octrois de subventions, moi, en tout cas, je ne l'ai pas vu. J'ai
I
vu
didn't see. I
575
saw
000, mais je ne l'ai pas vu.
567,000. I didn't see the description. What
Et
impact will it
concernant
have
les autres
on the other
dons et octrois de cette année, qui correspondent
donation for this year?
effectivement à
We
surplus l'année
say that
prochaine,
we want to have a surplus next year.
est-ce qu'on va pouvoir
Well,
avoir
really,
un
are we
surplus?
really going to have a surplus? I hope so.
J'aurais aimé, je pense que
I
voir
think
cette
I would have
proposition-là
liked
pour l'année prochaine,
to have
si
this
on va pouvoir
proposal
avoir
next year when we have
une autre raison, mais
a
je
better
trouve que
budget.
nous sommes déjà
Another
dans
reason,
une
I find
région qui est
we're
favorisée
already in a
avec
region that is
deux
favored
hôpitaux régionaux.
because of our two regional
Si on reste à
hospitals
Dieppe,
compared
je
to
pense que cet argent-là
uh,
pourrait être mieux
the other
investi
areas of the
avec
province.
20
It
000.
would be,
On
we
parle
don't talk
plus
about
de 100 000
20,000, we talk about
pourrait être mieux investi
$150,000
dans notre
that
communauté.
can be better
Comme je
invested
disais, pour avoir
in
un
our
plus grand impact
community to
dans
have
le
a greater
développement du
impact.
champ des
And
loisirs,
we just saw it in
des
recreation,
améliorations pour
not
les élèves,
challenges, but
etc. C'est
improvement
pour
and
cette
so on.
raison
That for that reason,
spécifique que je vais voter
and that I will vote against
pour l'instant.
for the time being.
Merci.
Thank you.
Autre question, Madame Godbout.
Other question, Ms. Gadbo.
Merci, Maître
Thank you, Your Worship.
Olivier, j'apprécie les commentaires.
I
Moi, je
appreciate
voulais
the comment.
souligner et
I just want
si tu peux me confirmer dans les
to
conditions que
mention,
tu as nommées, Marc, une des
confirm my
conditions aussi,
the
c'est que
condition you mentioned. One
l'individu,
condition is that the
l'étudiant,
individual,
viendrait pratiquer dans
the
notre communauté
student,
après
would
avoir
come and
suivi
practice in our community.
une
That's
éducation
an
secondaire.
important element. He would come and practice in the area. Yes, if the council tell us to proceed with such a contribution, afterwards we'll undertake or develop an agreement of partnership with the foundation, and one of the conditions will be included, such as the one that was just mentioned. Maybe to answer Sister Boutier, these monies will be taken from budget 2021, so it has no impact on 2022 operational. I know the amount is quite high, but except that the request of grant for 2022 has no impact on this year, on this budget. Thank
Merci,
you.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau, thank you, Your Worship.
Je vois que dans les critères que
I
l'individu
see
doit être parfaitement bilingue, c'est un jeune de
he
Dieppe.
must be perfectly bilingual if he's from Dieppe.
Puis
He
institution
will
d'études
practice
on
here, and the institution that he will
quelque chose.
C'est
attend.
certain que, Monsieur
Well,
le
of
Président,
course,
l'Université de Moncton,
we
qui
have the
est
University of
certainement
Moncton that
de
offer
première
a
qualité. Alors, est-ce
top
qu'on
quality
sent qu'on va
training
pouvoir
in
supporter? Alors, ça, ce
medical
sont des
study.
exemples d'éléments, je
These
pense,
are
qu'on va intégrer
examples
dans
of
le
elements that we will
processus
integrate.
de manière continuelle et puis
Leave it to
pour
see
lancer par la suite avec
what
tous les éléments
will
Mais
come afterwards. And
est-ce qu'on sait quels sont les autres critères que l'organisme ce sera pour
do,
choisir leur
do we know what are the other
si je me rappelle bien,
what they base on to choose. It's included, the criteria were included, and they chose students that were retained for each year. And
n'avais pas remarqué.
I didn't notice, maybe
Aussi, on va s'assurer
it's
que
not
les
included. Well,
évaluations
make
individuelles
sure
sont
to
tenues
share
compte.
them. I don't have it with me,
Les critères très
but
spécifiques
there's some
que
specific
plusieurs personnes
criteria. The
souhaitent
students
étudier et
can be
c'est ces
supported one
personnes
year,
qui
and the
vont
next year it
avancer
can be
vers
somebody
l'évaluation
else
peut-être rencontrée.
because the criteria may
C'est
not have been met.
une rigueur
So
assurée.
we make sure to have an effect.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Il n'y a pas d'autres questions.
If there's no other question,
Ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution, signifient
those in
par le
favor
oui.
say aye.
L'avis contraire par le non.
Contrary minded, nay.
Alors,
No.
le non est enregistré pour Madame
No is
Boutier.
registered for Mr. Boutier.
Prochain item,
Next
autorisation de
item,
signature d'un accord
signing
pour
authority
le contrôle des chiens.
on the dog control service agreement.
SPCA Grand Moncton, l'entité qui est recommandée
Greater
de
Moncton
voir l'application
is
de la
recommended
circulaire
to
du
see
dog
the
control
application
service des
of the
chiens
agreement for the
publié
dog
pour la
control
période du 1er janvier
for a
2022
period of
à
January the 1st,
26
2022 until December 31st, with a renewal possibility until
et par la suite
2024.
on
And
nouvelle les
afterwards,
personnes
we
qui ont
name
l'autorité d'agir
the
à titre
persons
contrôleur
who will be
et qui vont
authorized
encadrer ce
to act as control officers.
votre approbation s'il vous
So
plaît.
for your approval, this is for your
Merci. Vous avez
approval
la
tonight.
parole,
Thank you for the
Monsieur
reading of the
Boutier.
resolution.
Gênez-vous pas, Madame
Don't be
Boutier.
shy, Ms. Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Quel conseil
That council
propose la signature de
authorized the
l'accord de
signing of the
service
service
entre
agreement
CPA
with
Grand
the
Moncton
Greater
visant
Moncton SPCA
l'application de l'arrêté
for the
municipal
application
numéro
of the
1121
city's
pour les
bylaw
chiens
relating to
pour
dog
la
control
période
for the
débutant le
period
1er janvier 2022 au
commencing
31
January the
décembre
1st,
2022
2022 to
avec
December 31st,
possibilité de
2022, with
renouvellement jusqu'au
possibility
31
of
décembre
renewal until December
2024.
31st, 2024.
Que le conseil
And
nomme
that
Wayne
council
Biddle,
appoint Wayne
Rebecca
Biddle,
Lewis,
Rebecca Lewis,
Guillaume Cote,
Guillaume Cote,
Kevin
Kevin
Cipher,
Cipher,
Austin
and
McLaughlin as
Austin
dog commissioner
McLaughlin
à titre d'agent de contrôle
as
avec
organization
possibilité de
control in
l'approbation
his
de
animal
l'accord
control
par le maire
officer
proposé.
for the said bylaw. So moved by Councillor Boudreau,
Monsieur
seconded by
Nantin.
Councillor
Est-ce qu'il y a
Nantin.
des questions?
Any question on the question?
OK. Alors,
So,
Monsieur Nantin.
Merci.
Mr. Nantin, your worship,
Jusqu'à ce jour, est-ce que c'était fait à
until
Subsidy
today,
ou on avait déjà les services
was
de
it done by
SPCA?
the city or did we have the SPCA?
Monsieur Simard.
Mr. Simar, can you answer that
Aujourd'hui,
question? Yes.
c'est du cas par cas. On
Today
part
is case by case.
selon les
We
besoins.
go
On
according to
veut
the need.
simplifier, on veut
And
standardiser nos
we
services
want to
avec
standardize our
Rivieux.
service with Moncton and a
Les
review.
services 24 heures sur
We
24,
want
on n'a pas ça.
services 24 over
Les services
24, which we
dans
don't
le cas
have.
par
We
cas.
want to
Et
specialize
avec une
in the
spécification
field.
qu'on
Just that
entend mentionner
explanation.
en appel d'offres, mais on n'est pas
Ms.
dans les appels
Manasso
d'offres, là.
calls
C'est
to
des montants
call the tender. No, it's
fixés
the amount that were the necessary
dans l'accord de
ceiling.
service en
I
commun.
agree with that. There's no
OK, c'est ça.
problem.
J'étais juste
And it
curieux.
will improve the
Merci.
service. I was just wanted to know how we were proceeding before. Thank you.
Prochaine.
Next,
Merci,
no,
Madame Boudreau.
no, but
Merci, Monsieur le
Ms.
maire.
Boudreau, thank you, worship.
J'appuie les
I
efforts de standardiser avec les autres
support
municipalités.
to standardize with the other
Présentement, je
municipalities.
suis
It's
encore au
something
niveau
that
de
is
Service
lacking.
12. On a le contrôle
Today,
des
again,
chiens, mais on n'a pas
we
le
have
contrôle
control
des
of dog.
chats.
We don't have
Et
controls of
je
cats.
pense que tous
And
les
I think
animaux,
that all the animals,
c'est ce qui manque encore dans
that's what is lacking in this resolution.
Oui, pour les chats, ça a été
Yes, for the
évalué
cats,
aussi,
it
évalué.
was also
Pour les chats,
evaluated,
c'est des
but
bêtes particulières.
cats are as
C'est pas pareil
special
s'occuper un chien
animals.
qu'un
It's not
chat.
the same to catch a cat or catch a dog, put it in a cage, and you
Avec le
catch a
propriétaire
squirrel. But
des
cats
chats,
is not easy.
les
Cats,
propriétaires de chats
the
souvent
owner
les
of
laissent
cats often
errer. Donc,
leave
s'ils
them
le blessent,
loose.
c'est totalement
They have no
inadapté dans
leash.
une autre situation. Puis
So in another
c'est très
situation,
difficile.
it's
Souvent,
very
ça va
hard.
presque doubler le coût
It
qu'ils
would have
demandaient
more
pour
than
le
doubled
traitement. Donc,
contract,
pour
the amount
l'instant,
of the
c'est ça.
contract. For the
C'est
time
avec
being,
les
we
chats,
prefer to go
on
with
est
dogs and with metal to have people come over, including dog park rather than cats, who are really a problem. It's
Est-ce que
special.
les autres villes
What
peuvent
about the other
aussi
cities? Do they
Oui,
deal with cats? Some, yes.
et Moncton, oui.
Review, yes. Mountain, no.
Réponds question.
Answers the question.
Prochaine personne, Madame Godbout.
Ms.
Merci, Monsieur le
Godwin,
maire.
your worship.
Question pour peut-être les
A
finances. Là,
question for
combien d'argent est
finance,
généré
but
par la
how much money is
licenciation? Est-ce
generated
qu'on a vu une
by
augmentation
the
de
dogs
ces
license? Did we
revenus
see an increase of
comparativement, disons,
these
pour un film
revenue
de juste
compared
Facebook
to
ou
number
des
of
chiffres
photographs that I have on Facebook?
Je peux répondre à cette question.
I can answer that question.
La
Fine.
médaille ici à Dieppe est gratuite
The
pour les
medal
dogs.
here was free for the dogs.
C'était une stratégie qu'on a
It
utilisée
was a
pour
strategy
augmenter le
that we
nombre de dogs
used
enregistrés.
to
Et
make
la
the number
stratégie
of
n'a pas été
registered
relevée
dogs
aujourd'hui. On a vu
increase,
le nombre
and we saw the
augmenter.
number
De toute façon, c'était
increase.
minime.
However, it
Il y a
was
beaucoup de
very
personnes qui
minimal.
sont là,
The cost,
l'administration qui en découle.
it's not the
Et
administration that
la
is
circulation
involved,
de la loi sur
and
la
with
gouvernance locale,
the change on
la
local
charge de travail
governance,
pour la ville a augmenté
the
beaucoup
workload
pour notamment le
increased quite a
suivi
bit
de
because
la vaccination des
we
chiens
have
pour dire
to check the
ce qui
vaccination
n'était
of
pas le cas
dogs,
avant.
which we do, and it was not the
Est-ce qu'on
case
voit une
before.
augmentation du nombre de
Do
gens
we
qui
see an
enregistrent les
increase of
dogs
people
aussi?
who
Est-ce que ça
register their
correspond au
dogs
nombre accru
in the last few years?
nageur?
Il y a eu
Compared,
une légère
there
augmentation,
was a
mais
slight
cependant, avec les nouvelles
increase. However,
enregistrés
with
contrats-là,
the
les nouvelles
implementation and
personnes
that contract, and new
vont
persons who will
être
be
beaucoup plus proactifs
more
et plus
proactive and
intervenants.
it
Ça
will
montre qu'il faut
interfere more.
améliorer
They
les
will
choses.
patrol and check
C'est clair
things out.
que le nombre va
Well, it's
augmenter.
clear that the number
Et
will increase.
au bout de
And
la prochaine année,
at
on
the end
fera
of next
des
year, we
rapports
will
sur la
evaluate
possibilité
as to the possibility
pour
of
la médaille. C'est possible aussi
putting the cause for metal.
en
It's
vigueur.
not excluded that we will implement that,
Des
if
résultats qu'on va avoir.
depending on the results that we will have with
Merci. Est-ce
SPCA.
qu'on donnera la chance à la communauté de
Will
peut-être
we give a chance to the
participer ou de
community
s'inscrire avant que les
to
délais soient
subscribe
passés?
before we
Il y a beaucoup
apprehend the dog? Oh yes,
d'éducation
we're doing a lot of education right now,
proactive
and
de ce côté-là. Fait que oui,
where
si on fait cet exercice-là, on
if
va
we
effectivement.
do that exercise, we will do it all the way. Yeah, thank you.
Merci, Monsieur
Thank you,
Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship.
À la page 167,
On
vous
page
avez d'accord avec la
167,
proposition, mais
I
vous
agree with
voulez
the
une
proposal,
clarification.
but just a
À la page
clarification.
167, on dit
Page
la Commission
167,
d'assurance d'animaux, la
there's other.
SPCA, l'organisation
The
sans but
SPCA
lucratif,
is a
a une
non-profit
réputation d'expert
organization.
dans ce domaine.
It has a reputation
Avec la
of being
SPCA,
an
a des
expert.
ententes long-term
SPCA
avec
has
Long-term
agreement
Review.
long-term with long-term
Vu
review.
qu'elle ne contrôle pas les chiens dans la
Since
ville de Dieppe,
they
ça
don't
représente
control
un
the
problème
dogs,
opérationnel
that
majeur
represents
pour la
problems,
ville et le public.
and the public.
Là, on parle de la situation actuelle où
We talk about the present situation
actuellement, quand un chien
where
est
presently,
arrêté,
when the dog
euh,
is captured,
si c'est la fin de semaine, ça peut être
if
un
it's on the
problème.
weekend,
De
it
notre
can be a
côté,
problem
il y a personne
because
pour
on our
contrôler
side
les
we don't
dogs.
have the staff to run after dogs and
Donc,
catch them.
il y a les
So
services à Terre-Neuve, qui est un comité
the
qui
service element is not there. So thank you.
C'est clair, expliqué comme ça.
When
Merci.
you explain it that way, it's clear. Monsieur Brideau,
Merci, M. le maire. Ben, c'est juste
your worship,
pour une clarification. Parce que
was the clarification.
la motion parle du
The motion
SPA. C'est pas SPCA
SPCA
du tout. Non,
is
c'est
not
SPCA.
SPCA.
le nom est vraiment
No,
le
the
bon.
name is really the good one. SPCA
C'est un
is
autre organisme
it's another organization,
provincial sur les animaux,
and
notamment les
the
animaux sauvages.
at the provincial level it's SPA.
C'est des organismes indépendants, de la même
These
façon
are
que la
independent
Fédération provinciale
organization, just like you have a provincial,
GRC.
the RCMP, for
Oui, mais
instance.
on parlait
When we were talking about
du SPCA, on dit
the
on dit
SPCA,
Moncton.
we always talk about mountain.
C'est pas nécessairement le.
Il faut faire attention en français et en
Let's
anglais, il y a un C
be
qui apparaît.
careful. In French and English, there's a C that appears in one language. Okay,
Control.
thank you.
C pour control.
C for control.
En parlant de contrôle,
Speaking of control,
prochaine personne, Madame Leboutier, je crois.
Mr. Boudier is next.
Non, plutôt
No,
Monsieur Lantin.
Monsieur Lantin.
Merci, M. le maire.
Thank
Je
you,
pensais
worship.
que le C de SPCA,
I
c'était
thought
une
the
société
C for
protectrice
SPCA
canadienne des animaux.
was Canadian
Faudrait
for
que je vérifie ça.
animals. I should check it out.
Faudrait avec
Well,
pour être sûr
just to
qu'on
be sure
comprend, là,
that we understand
au niveau
correctly
des frais des coûts
as
pour le
to the
technicien, on parle de
expenses and
40
the
heures par
costs.
semaine,
We talk an officer 40 hours,
ça varie
9,000,
dépendamment
so many dollars. It can
de la
vary.
semaine. So,
So anyway,
l'estimation
the
d'utilage, c'est
estimation of the costs
600 000
is
ouais,
40,000,
environnement,
more or
autour de ça. Il n'y a
less,
pas de
depending.
variation, c'est ça?
There's no variation. It's
C'est le montant qui est mis là.
39,000. It's the amount that is mentioned there. That's the amount.
Donner le manque de coût personnel
So
est moins ou plus élevé,
the
sera ajusté.
it says
À la
more or
fin,
less will be adjusted
il peut
at
y
the
avoir une
end.
augmentation
There can be an
qui
increase.
peut être en entente à 7 0
According
à
to the
55
agreement,
000, ou ça pourrait
7.5%,
diminuer une fois de
and
plus.
could also
Ça ne peut pas
decrease,
être plus que
but it can't be
7,5
more than
$.
7.5% over 40,000. We won't have a surprise. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Maintenant, Madame Mercier.
Now, Mr. Boutier. No,
C'est une vieille lumière.
that's an old light.
OK. Alors, pour la question, ceux qui sont en faveur
For the
de la
question.
Now
résolution,
for the question, those in favor, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay.
alors, la résolution est acceptée.
Adopted.
Maintenant, on va passer à 10.4.
Now at 10.1.4.
La ratification de
Ratification, various directives adopted at closed meetings. Now and then, the first one, so we created a position with the Arts and Culture Center for artistic director. To create this post, Dieppe contributed $80,000 for the creation of this position and and to have more responsibility for arts and culture in their community. Second, it's a call for tenders for architectural services to work on the Dieppe Market project for operational needs and plan. So this is a call for tenders. Nado Susi tell us for $38,000 was chosen. And so we have a provisional plan for next year. So these are the two directives for tonight. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councilor Leboutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. The council ratified the directives adopted at closed meetings of council concerning the following topics. 1. Creation of a position, Artistic Director, Arts and Culture Center, adopted April 26, 2021. 2. Call for tenders, Architectural Services, Dieppe Market Expansion, adopted August 9th, 2021. I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Leboutillier, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau for the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Adopted, carried as per as 10.2 expansion Dieppe. 10.2.1 financial contribution. The three cities want to help the New-Brunswick Refugee Clinic for legal services. So this will help people who need the services. It's to renew this contribution for this year for $2,500. Moncton and Riverview contribute as well to this project. Moncton 5,000, 8,000, and Riverview 2,500. So this is for your approval of this contribution. Thank you for the reading of the resolution, Councillor Goodboom. That council authorize the operations of to issue tenders to amount of $2,500 to the New Brunswick Refugee Clinic, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1/2/2014-2150 general operation budget. For the question, none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now 10.3, finance. It's the time of year with this financials of the first meeting of next year. We have annual transfers to reserves. It must be authorized by council for the next four resolutions for expenses that are put back to next year to bring back monies transferred that are not used for the next year, and that surplus that are transferred to reserves and the balance transferred to capital reserves for the future. And the last, the fifth resolution is to for the commitments in the funds. So these resolutions reflect what I said. So if you have any questions for the reading of the resolutions, Mr. Latang. Thank you. Transfer of funds, general opening reserve fund. The council authorized the transfer in the amount of $594,000 from the general operating fund to the general operating reserve fund. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $460,000 from the general operating reserve fund to the general operating fund. I so move, your worship. Moved by Councillor Latang, seconded by Councillor Boudreau for the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Next resolution, 10.3.1.2. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, your worship. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $6,918,000 from the general operating fund to the general capital reserve fund. That council authorized a transfer in the amount of $236,000 from the general capital reserve fund to the general capital fund. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $1,079,000 from the general capital fund to the general capital reserve fund. I so move, your worship. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Leboutier for the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now 10.3.1.3. Councillor Turgeon-Leroy. Thank you. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $18,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Reserve Fund. I so move. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Leroy, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau for the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.3.1.4. Transfer of funds, water and wastewater disposal, capital reserve fund. Councillor Thibodeau. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $837,000 from the water and wastewater disposal operating fund to the water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $2,000 from the water and wastewater disposal capital fund to the water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund. The council authorized a transfer in the amount of $37,000 from the water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund to the water and wastewater disposal capital fund. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Dedet for the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. So now we're at 10.3.1.5 commitments, various reserve funds. Councillor Lading.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, je dois lire toutes les.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Merci.
I must read all the points. Yes, I didn't know that. Wouldn't have volunteered. I thought it interested you. You blinked at me. I'll try. The council authorized following commitments from the following reserve funds. General Operating Reserve Fund, account number 7420128910. One, emergency measures, $235,000. Two, snow removal, $350,000. Three, asset management program, $266,000. Civilization refers, $375,000. Five, engineering, street inspection, $35,000. Six, engineering, global traffic plan, 2040, $20,000. Seven, human resources consultant, $50,000. Eight, leisure master plan, $175,000. Nine, transportation mobile receiver to be replaced, $28,000. 10, administration incentive program downtown, $525,000. 11, information technology, various software, $68,000. 12, tourism initiatives, $52,000. 13, innovative initiatives, $65,000. 14, grant Dieppe Arts and Culture Center, $80,000. 15, insurance potential claims, $25,000. 16, planning and development, Sauvé project, $10,000. 17, planning and development, green fund, $72,000. 18, planning and development, Petticoat, 48,000. Clerk's office, software maintenance, Laserfish, $42,000. 20, leisure, purchase of artwork, $50,000. 21, leisure and sports, Hall of Fame, $38,000. 22, facilities, sports and public fields, $80,000. 23, communications, downtown signage, $100,000. 24, communications website redesign, $25,000. 25, one-time expenses, public transit, $40,000. 26, 2022, one-time expenses, general operating fund, $94,000, with a total of $2,948,000. Water and wastewater disposal operating reserve fund, account number 7420128931. Stabilization reserve, $559,000. Two, equipment program information technology, $57,000. Three, potential claims, $25,000. Four, information technology unforeseen expenses, $11,000. Five, clerk's office records management software, $10,000. Total $662,000. General Capital Reserve Fund, account number 7420128920. One, asset management program, $4,934,000. Two, future land purchase, $1,777,000. Three, current capital projects, $487,000. Four, pending capital projects, $1,988,000. Five, capital projects, 2022 financing, $4,523,000. Six, capital projects uncommitted, $2,224,000, for a total of $50,933,000. Water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund, account number 7420128940. One, asset management program, $719,000. Two, current capital projects, $208,000. Three, pending capital projects, $482,000. Four, capital projects, 2022 financing, $4,000. Five, capital projects uncommitted, $1,121,000, for a total of $2,534,000. If you want me to repeat a second time, I shall move. Moved? Yeah, I'm tempted. Moved by Councillor Latang and seconded by Councillor Brito. For the question, Councillor Ledoux. It's really difficult for us to follow all the reserve funds for all the years, but I have a general question. Were other reserve funds that are older than 3 years that are not associated with planning of assets? Are there some that are older than the 3 years that we're continuing to put into reserves? Technically, yes. We have two types of reserves. Um, Capital funds and operating funds. Sometimes there's money in the capital funds that are there for some time. Sometimes they're not committed and they'll serve to what we need. Like this year, we worked on Book Street. We were we went to reserves to be able to finance the second phase. And for operating funds, generally, we're trying not to have money in there too long. However, there are small amounts, yes, that are there for more than 3 years, but every year we try to go through these small amounts. And other amounts will stay, for example, with snow removal. Of course, it's there, and if we don't use it, it could be there for 10 years and we won't use it. But there's an insurance in there. But for other amounts, for example, for tourist initiatives, 52,000, that's for this year. And it comes from the levy tax. So we put it aside and we hope that in next few years, we'll have initiatives for that. But most of the time, we try as much as possible to keep it there 2 or 3 years because we look at it every year in the master plan. And if it's not used, then we usually take it out because it's a reserve that's maximized and it's important. And if it's more than 3 years, it's there. So it could be problematic. Thank you. No other question? Those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now to point 10, point 3.2, insurance renewals, municipal vehicles, buildings, and liability for directors, etc. Here you remember we had the service of Gogashop Insurance Inc. It was confirmed to council in 2020 in December. So for our needs for the municipality with insurance policies and liability and for directors, so we're going with Frank Gauguin Company. It was a sizable increase, and for fiduciary insurance, we're going with Southwestern Insurance for $4,027, the same as 2021. And with environment liability insurance with AXA, Excel Specialty Insurance Company for a mounted of 13,491,000, the same as 2021. So our broker and our personnel who worked on it, this is the recommendation of personnel. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Turgeon Roy. The council authorized the renewal of the vehicles, buildings, and liability insurance policy, as well as the liability insurance policy for the directors and elected municipal officials with Franco and Company payable to Assurance Gauguin Champlain Insurance Inc. at the cost of $428,200 for 2022. That council authorized the renewal of the fiduciary insurance policy with Southwestern Insurance Group Ltd payable to Assurance Gauguin Champlain Insurance Inc. at the cost of $4,207,000 for 2022. That council authorized the renewal of the environmental liability insurance policy with AXA XL Specialty Insurance Company payable to Assurance Gauguin Champlain Insurance Inc. at the cost of $13,491 for 2022. I so move. Moved by Councillor Turgeon Roy and seconded by Councillor Garrido. Councillor Leboutier, I have a question respecting the increase. 15.6. Is this for claims or is this just the market that reflects this? I'm going to ask Stéphane. Do you want to go ahead, Mr. Landry? Good evening, Your Worship of Councillors. to answer that question, it's not because of claims. Yes, we've had a few of them that affects this, but this is the market we could see in the newspapers the last few weeks that some municipalities have had increases of 30, 40, 50%.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and the answer. No other questions? Those all in favor, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried. As presented. Now, 10.4 appointments. Yes, we have four groups renewing uh, people that were already on the committees. So Kodiak Regional Policy, Planning Advisory Boarding, and an NB Crime Stoppers renewals. Thank you for the reading. 10.4.1 for Kodiak Regional Policing Authority. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council appoint Robert Arsenault, the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority for another term ending December 31st, 2022. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gadet for the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. This is a new councillor on the committee, and we have governance policies for new renewals of committees. We have work to do on that side, and we shall recruit people to put into place a better process. I could help you with that, Your Worship. Thank you. So now we have another person on the committee. If there are no other questions, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Next point, 10.4.2, Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Godbout, please. The council reappoint the following persons on the Planning Advisory Committee. Louis H. Leblanc and Paul Lebreton, term ending December 31st, 2024. Raymond Landry, term ending December 31st, 2023. Richard Godet, term ending December 31st, 2022. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Brideau for the question. The same question. I I I know the answer here because I'm on this committee. That's good. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.4.3 NB Crime Stoppers. Councillor Godet. The council appoint Yvon Como on the board of directors of NB Crime Stoppers for another term ending December 31st, 2023. I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Gadet, seconded by Councillor Boudreau. For the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. So Mr. Como is provincial president for Crime Stoppers as well as first. For the nominations, could we bring it to a later meeting so we could create a nominations committee? I have no problem with people that I suggested, but we're renaming people basically. And I think it would be appropriate that we have a committee. We had mentioned it So for the second time it comes to council, we don't always present the same candidates. But in a future meeting, could we have a committee, a nomination committee? And yes, I would like to be part of that process. Yes, it's noted. Thank you.
OK, au 10.5, du côté
10.5
gestion.
operations.
10.5.
10.5.1.
Pardon?
Oui,
Oui, oui, oui.
oui, OK.
Did we
Le
vote?
vote pour M.
Yes.
Como, oui.
Yes, for Mr. Kamal. Yes.
Oui.
Alors, prochain dossier,
Next file, Memorandum of Understanding. Call for tenders, collection, disposal of waste. So congratulations to the team of the staff. We had discussions with Riverview to develop a collaboration protocol. So we're going to go for tender with the two cities for waste collection. Riverview is doing the same thing with their council meeting. So we hope it'll coincide. So it's to be able to go for tender on the market for 5 years. And we hope to get a better price. And for the provider of services, we would like a stability with our investments in the long term. So we recommend to adopt this partnership.
Merci pour la lecture de la
Thank you
résolution,
for
Monsieur
reading of the resolution. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That council approved the memorandum of understanding between the city of Dieppe and the town of Riverview in regards to the establishment of a single tendering process for both municipalities in regards to the collection and disposal of waste services, which would see the said municipalities working together on a joint basis as per the Procurement Act. I so move.
proposé par le conseiller Thibodeau, appuyé
Moved by
par
Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by
sur la question.
Councillor Godbout. For the question.
Question, ceux qui sont
No
en faveur.
questions. All those in favor of the resolution? Oh,
Thibodeau, vous avez une question.
Councillor Thibodeau, you have a question. It's not really a question, it's a comment. Finally, we have an understanding in both official languages in this province. It's paradoxical with an Anglophone town like Riverview that we can have such an agreement and then the bilingual city just beside it. It's impossible to do it. I really don't understand. That's all I wanted to say.
Au risque de
At the risk of
d'embarquer sur un terrain plutôt glissant, je vous
to
dirais
go on a slippery
que
slope,
système
I would say that
de ramassage des vidanges est un petit peu
that
très différent.
the collecting of garbage is a little bit different in Moncton than it is for us
Ils ont encore des
because
syndiqués qui
they
sont
still have union workers
ça change de
doing that. So it changes things.
C'est ça. Et ceci étant
So that's it.
son
That being said,
et proposé par le conseiller
moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godbout. For the question,
aucune autre question.
no question
Ceux qui sont en faveur
or comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay.
sont adoptés tels que présentés.
Carried as presented. Next, 10.5.2, purchase and installation of 2 pumps. Here we have a recommendation for the installation purchase of 2 pumps at the airport pumping station. It's an evaluation in the last few months that became important to invest earlier rather than later. It wasn't planned for 2021, but it's recommended that we proceed with this change of pumps. So it's recommended to go with Flowstar Industrial for $64,000 and installation of said pumps with Moncton Plumbing at $7,500. And we'll have to have a budget transfer for $75,000 in the reserve funds. So that's the recommendation of personnel for the purchase of 2 pumps. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. The council authorized the purchase of 2 pumps for the airport pumping station to Flowstar Industrial at the cost of $64,000 plus HST, and the installation of said pumps to Moncton Plumbing at the cost of $7,500 plus HST, and further authorize that the expense be defrayed from account number 4390127901, water capital budget, equipment purchase, and that council authorized a budget transfer in the amount of $75,000 from account number 7 for 2012 8940, water and sewer capital reserve fund, to account number 4390127901, water capital budget equipment purchase. I so move, your worship. Moved by Councillor and seconded by Councillor Lightek. For the question.
Une question, M. Godette.
Oui, merci, M. le maire. J'ai seulement une question. On remplace des pompes, hein? C'est des
Oui.
pompes qui sont déjà là?
Oui.
OK, merci.
Merci. Autre question? Sinon, ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution signifient par un oui. L'avis contraire par un non. La résolution est adoptée telle que présentée. Item 10.5.3, le plan de déneigement.
Alors ici, on est demandé de faire son adoption. Ici, c'est pour assurer que le conseil est bien au courant de tous le plans en place. Et suite à une recommandation d'une session que certains d'entre vous avaient participé, voyant l'importance d'en faire l'adoption. Alors, c'est pour votre résolution ce soir.
Well, for your approval. For those who have participated in that presentation, that was from the Francophone Association of Municipalities of New Brunswick, has to do with the recent decision of Supreme Court of Canada. They were found guilty of poor snow removal, and a lady was seriously injured. And we always did it as a city. We always adopted it. We want to continue to be well protected. We were always doing, we had a presentation, we would, file the plan, and we never approved it. Okay. My memory fooled me, and we accepted it. Different now. We have it. We own it. This being said, all those in favor, say aye. Mrs. Turgeon-Roy moved, and for the reading, we'll go with the reading. Your worship, that the council approve the levels of service and priorities outlined in the city of Dieppe 2021-2022 budget, the snow and removal plan. As well moved by Councillor Duchon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Gadet. On the question. No question. All those in favor, say aye. And reminded, nay. Carried as presented. It's almost 10 o'clock. That being said, what is left to be done is go around the table. Well, legally, we need a motion to extend after 10 o'clock. The council has to agree to go beyond 10 o'clock. Two-thirds? Unanimous. With a resolution to continue the meeting, Mrs. Boudreau moves, seconded by Mrs. Godbout. On the question. All those in favor that we continue past the hour of 10 o'clock, say aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried unanimously. That being said, the only thing left is your time, the time of our counselors, this time of the year. It's always special, Mr. Godet.
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Moi,
Thank you, Your Worship.
ça va pas être long.
It won't be long.
J'aimerais souhaiter de belles
I
fêtes
would like to
à tous
wish
nos
happy
ressortissants.
holidays to all our citizens.
Merci.
Thank you. Very well. That's all. Mr. Boudier.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank
maire.
you, Your Worship.
J'aurais trois choses.
I would have three
La première,
things.
ça serait
First one would be
concernant l'engorgement qu'on a sur l'intersection
concerning
de la France et la Gauvin.
the problem at
Est-ce
the
qu'on s'entend
intersection of La France
dans
and
un futur
Gauvin.
avec un court
Where
giratoire?
do we go
Et
in the
est-ce qu'on
future
a fixé
with
une
a
fameuse
Carrefour? Did we think?
auparavant, mais est-ce qu'on a
But
regardé
did
à
we look
faire trois voies
at
avant
making a three
Carrefour?
lane
Est-ce que c'est possible
before
d'ici à ce qu'on a
the
assez de
Carrefour?
territoire de mettre un trois voies là?
Can we put a three
Évidemment, ça
lane?
réduirait
At least it
les
would
heures,
reduce
ça serait un petit peu moins
the
pénible
hours.
lors des
It would
transitions.
be not as bad for the
Comme Spencer vient de
heavy
le
traffic
mentionner,
hours Miss Spencer
bon,
can
avec le
add,
carrefour
but in
giratoire,
the
c'est d'avoir
plan
aussi le
is
prolongement
to
de la
have
route
the
qui va,
extension of the
qui va
street
brancher sur la Thomas
that goes
et
to
viabiliser
Toma
aussi tout ce site
and to
vacant. Alors,
use that
l'investissement
site that is
est
vacant.
immédiat
So
pour le
this
carrefour giratoire
intersection,
qui est prévu. Puis, dans le
the
court
traffic circle,
terme,
and on a
on
short
en a
term
parlé dans les projets
basis,
capital.
I know we've talked in the capital
Spencer aurait
budget.
des précisions à
Maybe
ce niveau.
Miss Spencer would have more to add on this. Good evening.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le maire, membres du
Good evening,
conseil.
Your Worship, members of council.
Donc, comme Monsieur le
So,
DG l'a expliqué,
as the
le projet du carrefour giratoire
administrator
est
said,
prévu dans
the
quelques
traffic
années.
circle is
Je
only
pense que
planned
j'ai
in a few
raison,
years to
si
come,
ma
in 2 or 3 years, if my
m'informe bien.
memory serves me right.
Entre-temps, est-ce que vous
In the
voulez
meantime,
arrêt à
do you
310
mean a
selon
three-way
Monsieur
stop,
Boutillier?
Mr. Boutier? Yes.
OK. On n'a pas considéré
Okay.
cette option-là, mais
We
c'est
did
quelque
not
chose qu'on peut
consider that
regarder
option,
à
but
tous
it's
les niveaux.
something we could look at and evaluate. Thank you very much.
Deuxième point, mais j'aimerais
The
féliciter
second
évidemment
point,
toutes les
I want to
parties
congratulate
prenantes et toute la grande équipe de la ville
all the
Dieppe
parties
pour
and the whole city
l'organisation
of
de
Dieppe
la
for
première compétition
the
du
organizing of the
Centralized.
first competition we
Et
had
la
last
nouvelle
week.
équipe hôte
At our
de
new
la compétition,
host
c'était
team,
la Ligue
the
nationale professionnelle
competition
avec les équipements
was the
individuels.
Leggett, the
Et
National League,
je peux vous
with
dire,
a local
Monsieur le
one.
DG, Monsieur le maire,
I can tell you,
que
Mr.
j'ai participé
Administrator and
aux
Worship,
deux. Là,
I
samedi, il
participated
y avait
in
au-dessus de 1000
two.
personnes.
On Saturday, there was over
Et
a
puis,
thousand people.
il y a juste que du
And
positif qui est sorti.
it's
Les
only
gens étaient
positive
emballés
things that came
sur
out of it.
place.
People were really
Il y
flabbergasted.
aura une prochaine rencontre
And
pour ceux
there
qui
will
vont
be
aller.
another meeting
C'est
for those who
évidemment
miss
deux
it.
jours,
In
6
February,
parties.
there'll be another
C'est
2 days,
nos Lions ont
six
gagné les trois
parties.
parties.
They won the three
C'est
party, the three
excellent.
games. It's excellent,
C'est excellent.
which is
Bonne chance
excellent.
à cette équipe-là.
Good luck to
Puis,
that team.
en
And
premier lieu, j'aimerais prendre le temps des
last,
fêtes
I want to
d'apprendre le
take
grand pas pour
the
adresser
holidays
aussi mes
that is coming
remerciements et
fast
mes
to
vœux.
give my
Merci encore une
thanks
fois,
and
Monsieur
my
le maire.
wishes once
Et
again, Your
j'aimerais vous
Worship,
remercier pour votre
Mr. Administrator. Thank you for your leadership
c'était
and the commitment
vraiment
towards the
exemplaire.
community.
On est
It's
vraiment choyés.
exemplary. We are
Marc aussi,
really lucky.
Marc,
Mark,
on est trois, mais je sais que tout le monde est
there's
évidemment en
three,
ligne. À toute
but
la grande équipe de
the
direction et
whole
à toute
team
l'équipe
of
logistique.
management and all our
J'aimerais vous
employees,
remercier
I
pour
would
votre
like to say
travail
thank you
accompli, votre
for the
collaboration
work well
aussi.
accomplished, your
C'est
cooperation,
vraiment, on a
and
vraiment des
focus.
services
We
vraiment
really have a
de plus
focus
en plus, puis c'est
more
important.
and more
C'est le fun
centralized.
de voir ça
It's fun to see that
avec
with
notre main-d'œuvre.
our manpower.
Surtout que ça n'a vraiment pas été facile
And
les deux dernières
especially
années,
was not
aussi
easy
cette
the
année
last two
avec la
years.
pandémie.
This year, because of pandemic and all the
Merci
counselors,
aussi pour votre
thank you
travail
also for your work,
accompli.
well accomplished.
Puis surtout, j'aimerais
And
à tous nos citoyens, nos entrepreneurs, nos
to all
partenaires,
our
souhaiter un bon merci pour
strategic
votre effort,
partners, thank
collaboration,
you for your
votre
cooperation.
agilité afin qu'on puisse
And
passer à travers de cette pandémie
so that we can
difficile.
go through
Puis
this
tous, je vous
pandemic
souhaite les meilleurs vœux
easier. I
pour
wish you
Noël,
all
beaucoup de
good
joie,
wishes for
un
Christmas,
grand
love,
bonheur,
joys,
santé,
a
repose
new
et
year
paix,
full of health,
abondance
be cautious and follow the security sign. We know we just went in the 1.5. It's important to follow them so that we can continue to have a freedom as much in our province as elsewhere. So thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you,
J'aimerais
Worship.
seulement
I would
souhaiter
simply
un
like
joyeux
to
fête
wish
à
happy
tous les
holidays to all the
travailleurs
citizens,
du
all the
Brunswick,
employees,
souhaiter
the
tous les
council,
résidents
the
ainsi qu'un
manager,
grand
and the
heureux et
mayor.
bonne année.
Happy holidays and happy new year. Thank you, Monsieur Brideau.
Merci, M. le maire.
Your worship,
C'est la même chose.
same thing with me.
Je vais juste faire mes souhaits
I just want to
souhaits de Noël,
wish
de joie,
the
de
Christmas
paix,
wishes, joy,
surtout
and gay and
de prendre bien soin
happiness,
de
and
chacun,
to take care
de
of
soi-même
each one of
pendant
ourselves, of
une
course, but
période
there is
qui est
a
insécure pour
period
tout le
that
monde.
is
Alors,
insecure for everybody.
garder nos précautions,
So
garder
let's
notre
remain
joie quand même.
cautious and keep
L'été
our
va passer, l'hiver va
joy.
passer.
The
Embrassez-moi
holidays will go by,
et
winter
moi, je
will go
t'arrêterai
by. Happy
bonsoir.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Good night. Thank you, Mr. Thibodeau. Sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship.
Moi, j'ai trois choses. Premièrement,
I have three things.
je voudrais dire que ce soir, pour
I
la
want to say that
présentation
tonight,
du directeur des
for
loisirs,
the
je pense
presentation on
qu'une
the
bonne présentation comme celle-là,
recreation
c'est
plan,
très
before
appréciable.
presentation like
Je crois
that,
qu'on devrait recevoir
I
la
think we should
version
receive
française en même temps
the French
que
version
les documents
at the
d'habitude.
same time as the other document.
Alors, j'en fais le souhait pour l'avenir.
I make
J'espère
a
que les
wish
nouvelles
for the future.
réglementations et
I
instructions.
hope that they will become a guideline.
Puis, deuxièmement, c'est une
Secondly,
question.
I have a
Je
question.
sais qu'on avait mis un budget de 10 000 l'année passée
You
sur
put
les charges
$10,000
pour les voitures électriques.
on the
Et la
charge
question
for
qui
electric
s'est
cars.
posée,
A citizen
c'est de
asked me
savoir est-ce que
question
c'est
on
le
that.
même montant qui est là.
Wanted to know if it's the
Est-ce que
same
ça
amount
pourrait arriver
that is still
présentement?
there. Is it first come,
Est-ce
first
qu'on va
serve?
augmenter le montant pour
Did
les
we
années à venir?
increase
Puis,
for a few future years? And
j'avais certaines réponses, mais
I
pourquoi pas?
had
On va aller
some
chercher
answers.
directement M. Frenette
Well,
s'il veut
let's go to the
répondre
source.
Le
Monsieur
directeur
Frenet,
des
do you want to answer Mr. Thibodeau's question? Good evening, worship members of council. To answer the question by Mr. Thibodeau, this year in 2021 is the first year that we were able to finance 10 charges fountain hydrant in 2022. We always have the same amount of 10,000, but it's a figure that we will want to present to you. The council wish to go ahead with the amount for the simple reason that this year NB Power is giving an incentive for the charge hydrant, so there's no way of knowing. We wouldn't want the people to use our incentive and the NB Power incentive also. Well, we wouldn't want them to double dip. So as to see if the council still wants to continue 2022 with that incentive. If not, we have other ideas for that. They would have an environmental aspect to for the amount. If the council doesn't go ahead with that incentive, the people, the residents of the city can take advantage of NB Power incentive. Thank you.
Puis l'autre point, c'est
The other
aussi,
one
je
is
voudrais
I
dire
want to wish
à tous
happy
les collègues autour de la table,
holidays to all the colleagues around
aux
the
employés,
table and all the employees
à tous les résidents
and
de Dieppe.
to all the citizens of the
Puis je dis à tout le monde, soyez
and I
prudents.
say be cautious.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
Merci,
Thank
Madame
you,
Turgeon-Roy.
Mr. Jean Roy. Thank you very
Premièrement,
much.
moi aussi,
First
j'aimerais
of all,
remercier
I
les
also would
résidents
like
pour leur
to
confiance
thank the
cette
citizens for
année,
the confidence
la
that
dernière année.
they
Puis ensuite,
expressed during the
aussi
last year
remercier
to
les
wish
employés
happy holidays,
aussi. Soyez
good
prudents, suivez
rest,
les
be
conseils de
prudent,
la santé
and
publique, c'est le
follow
plus
the
important.
public health
J'aimerais prendre ces quelques minutes-là
guidelines. I would
aussi
like to
pour
take a few
prendre
minutes
l'occasion de
to
souligner le
take the
départ
opportunity
de
to underline
Monsieur
the departure
Louis Doucette,
of Mr. Louis
chercheur
Doucet
des arts et de la culture, qui
at
avait
the Arts and
malheureusement
Culture
cette semaine
Center, who
terminé
was
son rôle de directeur
this year
des
he's ending as the acting director position. For those who don't know, Mr. Doucette was one of the founding member of the Arts in Dieppe. Mr. Doucette made a great contribution for the arts in our municipality, and I'm sure he will continue to involve himself in the development and vitality of our culture in our beautiful city. I want to thank him since he leaves a cultural center full of life, well that will contribute to our new policy of arts and culture here. And thank you very much, Louis. You know how much we've appreciated your devotion that reflect your love, the love that you have for our art center. I think the opportunity to offer my sincere congratulations to Mrs. Siren Fox, who was assuming several functions within the organization, and she is becoming the executive director of the Art and Culture Center. I must add something new, and we talked tonight: the creation of a art, artistic position. That function will be assured by Ms. Sophie Doucette, who is well known in the artistic center. It's in support of the that she will help the help of the arts and culture not only for the center of arts but also within the program of our municipality. So I lift my hat to that beautiful team that will keep up working after the departure of Louis. That's thank you and happy holidays.
Merci,
Thank you,
Madame Godbout.
Ms. Godbout.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship.
3 points, moi aussi, ce
3 points
soir.
also
J'avais
tonight.
une question pour la
First of
direction.
all, questions for the management.
Pourriez-vous élaborer sur
Could you
l'absence de la crèche au coin de
explain the
la
absence of
troisième? Je pense que
the
c'est pas mal de questions. Je vais essayer
manger,
de
yes,
participer
of
pour
La Flèche
cette
and
occasion.
Acadie, and maybe you
Oui,
could give
certainement,
explanation.
merci
Yes,
beaucoup.
certainly.
Alors, lorsqu'on est arrivé au
When
fond, au moment de
we came to
l'installation,
the
ça a
time
su
of
que
installing
structure,
it,
la durée de
we
vie
noticed that
était
the structure
quasiment
was
devenu
terminated.
dangereux. Alors,
It
on a eu
had
la
become
décision
a
de
danger.
l'installer.
We decided not to
Alors, on
install
a
it for this
installé
year.
de comment on
We
pouvait
will
apporter
see
un
how we
décor au
can
coin de la rue
bring a
Acadie Champlain
decoration at the
pour l'année prochaine, quand on
corner
va
of Acadie and
repartir.
Champlain for next year.
Alors, quelque chose
We
qui
will
représente
try to see
le
something
lien
that represents the
entre la
festivity
naissance
of
et la mort de
Christmas
notre communauté.
and the
Alors,
birth in
c'est
our
une question
community.
qui
The
m'intéresse
reason
beaucoup.
why we did
La
install it.
festivité. Merci
That's it.
beaucoup,
A
pour
question of
cette
safety.
information plus
Thank you,
précise.
Worship.
Deuxième point, vous avez dit
Second point,
le conseil, les membres du
I want
conseil et
to
la
tell
communauté que
members of council
la
and the
situation
community
multiculturelle du Grand
that the
Moncton a
Greater
été
Moncton
définie comme
Multicultural
évoluant selon le
Association,
MAGMA, là, son acronyme anglais,
commonly known as
ont
MICMA,
évoqué des nouveaux règlements
they
législatifs
have
en
new
décembre dernier.
guidelines
On
since
a
December
participé
last. We
la communauté
participated,
avec les
we
discussions qui ont
contributed
suivi à ce
with the
niveau-là. Ça a
discussion
été
that they've had
d'enrichir
to
leur
try and
législative pour les
modernize
rendre beaucoup plus
their
conformes.
guideline to make them more
On continue
modern. We
comme ville d'avoir
continue
un siège au conseil
as a city to
d'administration
have a
qui
seat on the
siégera
board of directors,
avec
a
3 autres
non-voting
municipalités de la
seat
région.
with the other two
Donc,
municipalities.
vous le
I
savez,
wanted
peut-être
to
que
let you know
ça avait eu lieu.
that
Et
it
puis, dernière chose, je voulais
happened.
aussi
And the last thing is
me joindre
also I
à
want to
l'appel à
join
souhaiter
my colleagues to
de
wish
belles fêtes
Happy New
à
Year's,
les conseillers, les agents
Merry
et
Christmas,
particulièrement les
Happy
employés
holidays, and
de la
especially
ville de
the
Dieppe.
employees of our
À mon
city of
avis, vous
Dieppe.
avez évoqué
In my
l'esprit de
opinion,
Noël à l'égard
you
de tous les
evoke the
conseillers
spirit
depuis le
of
début de notre
Christmas
activité.
since the
Vous
beginning,
avez été
since
très
our
généreux avec
arrival.
nous
You've
autres,
been
accueillis
generous
et
for
on
with
apprécie
us,
beaucoup que ça
and
puisse
we
se
appreciate
terminer
very
dans
much
la
that
bonne façon
spirit,
les belles
not
fêtes.
only during
Je
the
vous souhaite
holidays,
des belles fêtes.
but since the
Merci.
beginning. And I wish everyone happy holidays.
Merci, Monsieur Lantin.
Thank you, Monsieur Lantin.
Merci, Monsieur le maire, de
Thank
m'laisser
you,
les
Worship.
dernières minutes. C'est bien apprécié.
My, you leave me
Rapidement,
the last minutes.
j'appuie les
I
commentaires de
support the comments
Conseiller
and
Thibodeau
the
en ce qui a
requests
trait au
by
document.
Councilor Thibodeau as
Pour
for
une
the
prochaine fois, on
document
souhaiterait avoir
for
la
the
traduction
next time
également,
if
parce que
we
je
could
sais
have
qu'un
the
document
translation,
épais.
especially that it's quite a
Aussi,
thick
j'ai trouvé ça très
document.
pénible à
I find
regarder
it
ce
hard.
soir.
Tonight's presentation, I know there were a
Quelque
lot of
chose un
details,
peu
but I
plus
would have liked to see
sommaire, plus
something
concis.
more summary and
Et
more
je n'ai pas
precise.
allé creuser
And
plus dans le
then
détail. Je
to
pense que
go
le
more
rôle de
in details, I
l'administration
think it's the
puis
role
de
of
mon autre département
management
de
and the
mieux
Department of
présenter
Recreation and to come and
leurs
present
recommandations
us
selon
with
ce
their
qu'ils estiment
recommendation
du rapport. Donc,
according to
c'est
what
ma
they
suggestion, mon
took out of the report. That's my recommendation for next time. On that, I would like to thank my colleagues around the table without repeating, the employees of the city who are doing a fantastic job. I think that the management and everybody, and I'm not saying it in the mic tonight, I say it in discussion on the street everywhere, how lucky we are, the, the council, to have a management of quality. It make our task much easier. I have full confidence in our employees, and you are making us look good. On that, I wish you happy holidays to our citizens, to everybody. Take advantage of time with the family and be careful on the street. Beautiful holidays. Thank you very much. Similarly, same way I want to thank all the employees of the city for their excellent job, the members of council, especially the new ones that joined us, that joined the municipal council. It's important for me that as mayor that we have fun at the same time to do the job we have to do. And I must say, I'm very happy. Sometimes I tease the other mayor by saying simply, I have such a good counsel. And then when I'm told, shut up. So I think that some people are envious of us, and when we see the transfer that were done tonight, and obviously the city of Dieppe is in good health. It's important, however, to always maintain the cap to keep our priorities toward our citizens to whom I wish a good holiday period in all safety with your family. I participated in a telephone meeting today with Health New-Brunswick, who talk about the new variant, the Micron variant, who is taking a lot of importance, and with which we have to be more aware of the danger that it represents. We know that on one side we are told that it's less severe than the others, and in other countries it's had a different effect. It was very aggressive. So there are new consignment, new uh, information that were given that will come into effect at midnight Friday night. That would change the rules and regulations. I encourage everyone to be informed, to maintain the rules. It's not easy. It's not easy for anyone. It's the only way to get out of it, come out of it. Not to be negative, but that's it. Once again, Merry Christmas, everybody. Have happy holidays. We'll see you in January, and we continue the work that the citizens have given us to do. I think it will be for the next 4 years, because there will be 1 year that will add on, considering the changes that are coming with the municipal reform. It will make it that we will receive 12%, an increase of 12% of citizens, which make it that we don't meet the rules of the province to have an election next year. So nobody will regret an election next year around the table. This being said, we can continue to encourage the government in its efforts with the municipal reform, even though there's a lot of questions to be answered. We'll continue to ask questions. I've talked too much. Good evening, everyone. It was a long evening, but at the same time, it's the only meeting for this month. So we'll see you all next year. Good night.